All right, dudes, we are live with another Pangburn Hangout. Today we're talking about the future of the mind. We are one day away from Michio Kaku. Michio Kaku will be coming on the air with me live on the Pangburn podcast tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific time, PST. And we will be live at youtube.com/Pangburn on the main channel. We're going to be talking about so many different things. I have my notes here. I want to talk to Michio about fatherhood and some philosophy topics, a couple of them. And then we're going to get into physics. We're going to talk about Fermilab's new G-2 experiment and what's been going on with the muon. Been very interesting. There's a actual recorded nominal anomaly in what we should be expecting to see at the magnetic dipole moment. So there's a magnetism discrepancy, and it's leading physicists to believe that there's a probability that the discrepancy could have something to do with an unknown new fundamental particle. Maybe even a gauge boson, a force carrier. Who knows? Or it's just a bunch of errors. But it's very interesting anyway. I'll talk to Dr. Kaku about that. He hasn't, as far as I can tell, minus some tweets, he hasn't spoken about it yet to see what he thinks. Going to talk about his new book, The God Equation. The Quest for a Theory of Everything, which is very interesting. I haven't gotten through the whole thing, but I've read very large sections throughout the book, and it's very interesting. It's Michio Kaku, right? You know what you're going to get with Michio Kaku. He's got those ways of saying things, and he's been saying them for as long as I can remember. I watched an old interview with him from the 80s, and I think it was the 80s. And, he some of those same lines that you get from Michio Kaku, he's saying them the same way. And, because, those specific things just haven't changed. And when he's recounting history and whatnot. So we'll be talking about that. Of course, we're going to get into vibrating strings. We'll be talking about, the graviton. Does string theory essentially live or die on the discovery of a particulate representation of gravity? Because we need, the point is that we want to unify GR, general relativity, and the standard model. And, we're going to have to inevitably deal with the problem of dark energy and dark matter, but starting off with a grand unified theory of at least general relativity and the standard model of elementary particles. And we'll get into talking about dimensions, quantum mechanics, and a little bit, and we'll finish off with some philosophy. I want to know some more things about his brain that I've never really seen him address. He probably has, because he's done so many shows and so many different things. But yeah, what up, Mace?
Hello.
What's shaking? You were just talking to someone about slavery?
Yeah. Turns out we're both pro-slavery, actually. So there isn't much to argue about.
Pro-slavery. And you guys were talking within the context of like with criminals, instead of locking them up, putting them to work?
Yeah. Well, the system I was proposing was simply that criminals, actually, for starters, I don't think all criminals should be enslaved. I don't even think all criminals should be sent to prison, to be quite honest. I don't think the government should be punishing people, and that's what the current legal system is designed to do. It's designed to send people to prison as a punishment, which I don't think it should be. I think for prison to work, it should be the place where we put people who are simply too dangerous to be left in the public, to be left in society. I mean,
Yeah, it's
that's the only thing it should be used for, in my opinion.
yeah,
But I also think if they're going to be in prison, they shouldn't be getting anything for free, because then they're just a bird that, like, we put them there so that they wouldn't be a threat to society. But now they're a burden on society because we're paying for all their shit. So they should work to get food and heating.
right. You think it's too much of a free ride in there?
Yeah.
Hmm. Join us live, VC, topic feature in the mind. Okay, we'll do that. I'm going to share this with the other channel.
What's your opinion on that? I'm getting the impression that you're not too keen on that idea.
Yeah, well, I think we actually don't we do this to some degree already. Like there is some hard labor elements, I think, even in the U.S. In some penitentiaries.
I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but in my country, if you go to prison, you get given free food, and I don't understand why that's happening.
Right. Do you see a discrepancy when you look at like people who are law-abiding citizens who can hardly afford food and then they get free food?
Yeah, because the way it is in my country, you're actually better off being a prisoner than you are being homeless.
Than living on the street. Oh yeah, I would almost venture to guess that would be most places.
Yeah, and that doesn't really make sense to me. It's like if you're in prison, you shouldn't be getting stuff that homeless people aren't even getting.
Right. Yeah, like if they're not, like at least the same prison food should be freely available to the homeless.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I guess what you're saying isn't very shocking to me because I think it's being done. Yeah, you might want to look into that a little bit, but I'm not
Perhaps
sure. Perhaps
not on the scale I'm proposing. I'm proposing that we convert all prisons into factories.
Oh, to make to make things. Oh, okay. I mean, as far as I can tell, initially, it's not. I mean, these factories with training facilities and education opportunities and things, soon you're going to make these prisons so fucking good. Someone's going to be like, "What's the minimum crime I have to commit to get into this club?" So that you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to incentivize it. But yeah, it's like The Office makes fun of this situation where the guy who has done a little bit of time in the clink says, "Oh yeah, we were able to take art classes, business classes taught by these Harvard guys, and all the like when he was in prison." And then people are like, "Wow, prison sounds better than this workplace." You probably want prison to not be, to feel like, well, I think yeah, you want prison to be a bad place to be, right?
No, I don't think it should be a punishment. I just wanted to.
I'm just saying bad place or a if you had a choice, you wouldn't want to be there. Because if you don't set that standard, what's keeping people from going in? Look, and I'm not saying that I'm not sure how well with the type of crimes that send you to prison, how much is deterred by the fact that prisons exist. But I know, like, on the small scale level, like if someone gets a speeding ticket, they're probably going to really keep an eye on speed limits for a while, but then eventually they get sloppy and fall off the wagon. So I guess the a conversation to be had is, are these deterrents really doing anything?
Well, I don't want prison to be or slavery to be a deterrent, because I don't really agree with the idea of the government coming in and punishing people. So
Right.
I don't think it should be a horrible place just for the sake of it at the cost of the taxpayer. I think it should be, I mean, if it does happen to be horrible, that's fine, but don't pay extra tax money to make it worse than it already is what I'm saying. I just
Right.
wanted to reduce the burden that it has on the taxpayer by making the people that are situated there have to actually work and contribute to society in some way.
Nice. Well, let's see the proposal. You got to write it up. You got to submit it to your elected officials. How do you think that would go over with the far left?
That would absolutely never happen. If I was to send that to my current politicians, I'm actually gonna just try. I'm gonna run for prime minister in my own country myself in the future, and I'm just gonna try and push it through on my own.
Yeah.
Because there is no way any politicians in my country would want to take the heat of that sort of policy.
So you want to take the reins and just shove it through like a dictator.
I mean, I feel like I'm probably the only person who would be willing to say, yeah, you know what, I'm pro-slavery when it comes to law and order and how we treat our criminals. I think the worst criminals should have to work for their fucking food.
Right. So you are into punishment?
Well, no, that's not as a punishment. It's just so they don't get free stuff. They shouldn't, like, basically they have more rights than us.
Should they
have
go
the right
in?
to say, give me food for no reason, and that's a right that no one else has.
Right. Should they go in naked, have to sew their own clothes, I think, and then they have to go hunt their own animals?
Well,
give them weapons.
Presumably they'd already own clothes. So, but then again, that they're going to need to wear a prison uniform so that we can.
Oops! Shit.
Not as prisoners can differentiate them between the other staff members.
Right.
So we'd have to provide them with a uniform, and obviously they'd get a. I don't know. Do they need to have a roof over their head? Or...
This is what I'm saying. If you're gonna go full, like, you're gonna work for it now. You give them a few building supplies.
I reckon if they don't want to work, then we can just put them in an animal pen. Like, we don't even have to pay for them to have a roof.
Now, are
you not into rehabilitation then?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for criminals, and if I was made dictator of the world, I would make the emphasis of the justice system be on rehabilitation. I think most people are redeemable, and so we should try to rehabilitate them first and foremost. It's only the people who are beyond rehabilitation, the murderers and the repeat offenders, who would then make it to the slavery stage in my system.
Are
you pro-slavery in general?
Yeah.
No, I'm just like if you can just grab a person and enslave them, you think that's
okay? No. I mean, I'm pro.
Why not?
Enslavement of
Let him answer,
criminals.
Nivik. Welcome, Nivik and Eliyahu Deltsu.
That would set a precedent.
Sorry.
Because the incentive, if a person is being enslaved, in benefiting off of that, is enslavement.
Nivik can't even wait to get his teeth wet.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't get that.
No, I'm saying the incentive would be about enslaving
I don't know what you're talking about.
You would want an incentive to try to enslave people because you benefit off of it in labor. That's all you care about.
Yeah, but you
So
don't.
You set a potential standard of wanting that demand.
There's too many costs. There's too
Because-
many costs associated with having a slave. It's not worth it.
I'm not sure if you were listening to the start of our conversation. I'm talking about converting prisons into factories and making it so that prisoners have to work for their food.
People interested in converting, it's about how much more people I can get to enslave to make money off of them. That's the drive.
No, because in my system, all prisoners wouldn't end. Well, not all prisoners would end up in the slave phase. It would be rehabilitation.
You don't know that.
Most of them end up in, because that would be the first stage.
That's not my interest as a slimy business guy. I want slaves.
Are you saying you think that there shouldn't be a rehabilitation phase?
I'm saying there shouldn't be incentive.
Well, I
enslaving
think,
people.
I think
Because
what
it'll
you're
push towards their incentive.
okay. So let me ask you this then, Nivik. Are you trying to
What's the
say to,
incentive?
are you trying to say to me that it's like being sentenced to community service as punishment for a crime is slavery?
Sorry,
People have an issue with like profiting off of imprisonment that can create an incentive instead of rehabilitation.
Yeah,
It should be just
I mean,
punishment. It just should be straight punishment. Forget all of this,
Well, hang on. What gives you the right to punish them as the government?
What gives me the right to punish them?
Yeah.
Well, if they did it wrong, you...
Yeah, but they haven't done anything to you. You're a third party.
Anyways,
yes, they did. I'm society. I'm of society.
If you guys want to keep going with this, just jump into a different voice chat. It's Eliyahu's day. Today, the topic we chose is the future of the mind. And I already did my intro to this, but one of the reasons is because we got Dr. Michio Kaku coming in tomorrow to chat with us. I'll be chatting with him on the podcast again at 11 a.m. Pacific. And that'll be youtube.com/Pangburn. And then he will be joining us at 5 p.m. Pacific for the Pangburn Q&A, which you guys can all join and sign up. Those happen on Discord, but you have to be a Pangburn website subscriber to get access. They are exclusive. So yeah, go to pang-burn.com/subscription to sign up. Anyways, rock and roll.
I want to say, Bobby, what are you thinking when you say the future of the mind?
Yeah, so I was thinking about, Michio Kaku, I remember watching an old interview of his from like 10 years ago, and he predicted that around now, he said 10 to 15 years, we'd be having the internet in our contact lens. He thought that we'd be able to blink and we'll be online. And we're close to that. I mean, we have the Google Glasses, but I'm still waiting for those kick-ass
Apple
internet contact lenses.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't know if I actually want those.
Apple's supposed to have AR.
But if anyone's ever seen the movie, the show Black Mirror.
Yep.
Anyone seen the show?
Yeah.
There's that episode where there are these contact lenses that people have where they walk past somebody and a bunch of information about them pops up.
Yep.
So you can see their name, their date of birth, whatever. And what's creepy, one of the things that's creepy is that if somebody is a sex offender, you can't see them. It's just like blocked out from their vision, and just a giant label comes up over them that says sex offender, sex offender.
Yeah.
That's fucked.
It doesn't seem that far removed from the way we treat sex offenders now.
So it's there's also that one where you can rewind everything you've ever seen, or like optically, and sound as well. But you can rewind it and look at it, and that's the Black Mirror episode when the guy's sure that his woman's been cheating on him, but she's just calling him crazy, and he ends up being right in the end.
Yeah, so we had this discussion a while ago. I wonder what anyone thinks about this, about taking people's memories, recording people's thoughts for purposes of determining if someone's innocent or guilty in a crime. It's like if we had access to this technology where we could access people's thoughts, imagine how we would get rid of wrongful convictions.
You
100%.
kind of have that right now. Like with child sex
No, you
trafficking, you talk to a kid and you don't have to screw the kid.
No,
You know what I mean?
Nivik.
You could.
I don't think that's what Eliyahu was saying.
No, I'm saying like, okay, so take the example of a guy whose house burns down and his kids die in the fire, and he gets convicted of having started the fire even though he didn't. So if we had the ability to read this guy's thoughts or look into his mind,
Yeah.
we could figure out like that if he actually started the
Yeah.
fire.
You
Whether
can
he's actually
yeah. I have no problem with this technology.
They have brain imaging, right? When they can tell
But Nivik,
what's going on in the
we're
head.
talking about future technology of being able to actually read if someone did something or not. We don't have that.
Yeah, this is
How many Americans are going to be the last people on board with this?
100%. Canada will have to lead the way like always.
no, who's going to lead the way is China.
China, oh, they will for sure on that. 100%.
Dude, it's because the government will just be like, hey,
We
guess
are
what,
doing
guys?
this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Talking about
China.
China.
But in addition to that, one of the other things that I'm interested in is just being able to take a shot or get some pill or some chip that will just load my brain up with all the knowledge on a certain topic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
See, I
Well,
think
I've
that's
actually
going to
thought
be
about
awesome.
something. I thought about something along those lines, Bobby, where it's like maybe you could get like a chip added to your brain, and then what you could do is that chip has a certain programming, so you could sit in front of a screen that flashed like QR codes at you for like 5 minutes, and then you just read like 30 books. You
Right.
know,
100%.
so, something along those lines. Yeah.
it doesn't that scare the shit out of you though, because there's going to be a Pareto distribution with that. Like 80%.
Yeah.
There is.
At first, yeah. Just like when books first came out, it's like poor people were reading books.
Yeah,
You know.
but I don't mean that. I mean like the people who get the chips are going to sacrifice so much of their internal like memory space and personality, if you will, to relive to use and utilize the same knowledge, like the same 20% of all knowledge that gets utilized 80% of the time. I say Pareto distribution, but it's gonna be like way worse than that.
Yeah, unless within that chip you also have like you build in storage capacity. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then this chip allows you to like have more storage, so you still maintain who you are, but when you need to access information, your brain can say, okay, go to the chip, do this, and you have that information that you're looking for.
Yeah.
It scares the hell out of me, man.
How many terabytes of how much RAM does the human brain have?
I'll look it up right now.
A fuckload. Yeah.
I don't believe it maps accurately as far
Holy
as
crap!
I've looked this up before.
2.5
Like
petabytes.
Yeah.
2.5 million gigabytes. Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yeah, a veritable fuckload.
Yeah, that's just the general. Yeah, that's,
I'm teraflopping, boys.
I feel like that isn't true for a lot of people. I think I met some people that have like 55 megs.
10 megs. Hey, fucking!
Right.
Oh, look who came into the room, man, Mr. 10 megs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there are also like the kind of people who just seem like idiots, but just do nothing but watch like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and that's their form of information. They can be like, oh yeah, 17 years ago when this other thing happened, and they can remember it all. It sort of like comes down to what people actually pay attention to as well.
When's the last time you defragged, you idiot?
I guess that's
That's what I would do.
They're
Or people that
just
see
walking-
aliens.
They're just all bunged
you-
up emotionally, and they're like, "Yeah, you need to sit down and defrag, man."
No, man, I saw aliens. Your video card is
Yeah,
fucked
your
up.
video card fucked you.
Defragging this DMT.
Oh,
Well, that's
crap,
another thing,
Travis.
guys. The experience of hallucinogenics, like it's just like, oh man, I just rented this chipped this code tonight. We're gonna trip out on it, man. It's just
Put this USB port in your mouth and smoke it.
No, dude, there was a great Ray Fiennes movies back from the 90s where it's based that you like people would record experiences with this little like thing that they put on their head, and then you could buy the like hard drive, put it on, and you would experience everything that they experienced.
Yeah.
What's
Well, the
that
Matrix deals with
called?
that a bit too. When she's like, "I need an upgrade." Well, first of all, when he was learning all the MMA, and then he gets he gets the upgrade through the or she what's her name? Fucking. She gets the she needs a helicopter knowledge and just download it just like that.
Mm.
Yeah, imagine
Change
that, but you
days.
get like
If you-
the operator from the Matrix gets like that like they click the wrong link because
Yeah.
it says like click here. And it's like,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah,
where
yeah.
you go? What the fuck? I'm a
Oops.
fry.
Or
No,
that movie's called Strange Days. If you guys ever want to check it out, really interesting.
Dude, my dick just grew 9 inches. What the fuck did you press?
yeah, exactly. Well, I was gonna say a joke. The new jokes of the future that you would play on your buddies is just fuck with their sexual orientation.
See, well, that was in that movie. So basically, there's a scene where a guy goes and gets like the sexual experience of a woman. So he experiences like a woman's orgasm and everything just from having this thing on his head. You know, like
Real after all.
yeah.
You'd be a real dick. You'd be a real dick and make them feel like what it's like to fuck their mom.
Just the worst things you could think of being written into programs.
It's like you're like,
Adware.
he
Like,
made
you
me
can't
bang my
stop
mom.
thinking
Fucking
of Adware.
asshole.
You just can't stop thinking of mattresses all day.
That's funny.
Oh fuck.
One of my favorite
Just kidding.
movies that not a lot of other people like, but I love it, is Limitless. Has anyone ever seen that with Bradley
Yeah,
Cooper?
that's a good one.
Limitless is great, dude. That TV show, I've watched the movie and the TV show.
That's
like,
what it feels like when
5
I smoke
times.
weed.
It's like
Shit's great.
I love it. I love it. That's the pill that I wish existed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they should just call that. They should just call that getting crossfaded between fucking shrooms and weed because that's what it feels like.
Adderall.
But do you know what it is? It's the pill that like, you know, in the movie, it's one of those dumb things. It's like people only use 10% of their brain. Like imagine
Yeah,
if
I
you use
know.
100, and it does
And
that
it's like-
stupid thing. But
Yeah,
it's like
okay, bro.
basically-
Maybe it's like maybe you
Yeah.
use 10% of your brain.
Yeah.
Whoever's
Well,
saying that.
Well,
Yeah.
what they mean by that is that the whole brain isn't lit up the way that, right? Like, yes, we use a small percentage of our brain at a given time. Not like 90% of it is not being used. But if you have your whole brain light up, essentially, you just fucking die. Like you couldn't withstand it.
Well, the problem with when people say that, they're making the argument that people can only access the power of 10% of
Right.
the brain. And if we could have access to 100%, imagine what we could do. And it's nonsense. But in the movie,
But that
they
is
take-
true on some accord. But it's not. But
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be accessing 100%. You're not like you know what I'm saying. Like if
That's
you look
a-
at the human
that
brain
myth-
and the thought, if
that
you actually look at
myth actually-
neuroscience,
That
Your-
myth
your
actually
brain is
came
lighting
about
up.
because
10%,
many years
yeah.
ago we only knew what about 10% of the brain did. So the assumption was, because we can't figure out what the rest of it does, that must mean we don't use it. But that's really old science, and we've come a long way since then, and we know what most of the brain does now.
It's just idle.
That movie Lucy, where she got the other 90 of her brain and then transcended space
I
and
don't know. I don't know if I
Yeah.
buy that.
I actually liked Lucy. I thought that was a decent movie too.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
but imagine that. Imagine using 100% of your brain at all. Like the whole thing is lit up.
I think that's called schizophrenia. Where
No,
you're like,
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think
it's-
it I think physically you're dead at that point, but yeah.
So I've been writing.
It's
A retarded person? That guy's using 100% of his brain.
you guys are describing an actual thing. It's called a seizure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you can move space time.
You pretty much just fall on the floor.
But inside your mind, you're taking over the planet.
I'm writing this character, and the idea is that it's basically Scarlett Johansson from Marvel, but with the powers of Lucy. She gets 100% of her brain. And my thought is she can control each muscle individually, and she has to concentrate to beat her heart. Like she beats her heart each individual time and like dilates her own eyes. And you would basically, everything that's not in your control, you would have complete control over.
Distract her for 5 seconds and she dies.
Yep.
Hypoxia.
But she can slip out of a pair of handcuffs. What are some other good ones though, like the Neuralink? What do you guys think about that? Of something where you could have some piece of technology where you could actually experience like other people's emotions, at the same time that they are.
Scares the shit out of me.
See,
I think that's
to
pretty
me
cool.
that seems really interesting to be able to like experience someone's emotions.
Yeah, so there's that about other emotions, but listening to your dog, going into the mind of your dog or into the mind of a mouse or into
being able to talk to whales and dolphins and animals that
and,
are like intelligent and be able to have communication with them. That would be
that is not how Neuralink works.
No, man.
No, we're talking like the
No, it's just
future of
hypothetically.
Neuralink.
So can I? So in all honesty, you kind of can do this right now. It's getting pretty close, but here's what I mean by that is they were running experiments. I think in Sweden where they were able to track a dog's brain and pick up basic simple commands. So if the dog wanted food, it could say, "Hey, I want food. Hey, I want to go outside," and they can actually pick up the brain signals. Yeah, so you can literally listen to the words of your dogs, right? It's the same concept, like Stephen Hawking and things like that, where basically it's a machine that's kind of speaking to you, but it's just a helmet on your dog. And so they were doing this. Was really interesting. I think the scary bit is you're going to be creeped out about how much your dog wants to smell your dick.
Well,
where are my testicles?
Because you talk about the dog thing. I don't know if you've seen
Where
this
are my testicles?
Aren't you really talking about that movie Up?
Well, have you seen this, Grim? There's so basically this lady started training her dog with like buttons that said like food or walk or like whatever, and she trained the dog to like when he wanted food, he'd hit food. Now she's got like a panel of about like 30 buttons that dog can come over and like, and he fucking talks to her. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a study on how many words a dog knows, and the average dog without barely any training is around 140 words.
Oh.
If he has 140 words, he's like really close to being able to code in Python. Imagine getting outsourced to a dog.
Dude, he'd be a master in Fortran.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Alex the parrot?
Yeah,
I do it better.
Similar to that, with able to identify a bunch of different colors and objects, and he was the first and only non-human to ask a question.
Yeah.
He looked in the mirror and said, "What color am I?"
Because I thought like sign languaging gorillas, like they've asked questions, right? It just
that's
happened
creepy too.
Before that happened.
Yeah.
I just want to see the gorillas who can code. Why no compile?
Gorilla smash computer. Gorilla mad.
Figment fault make Coco sad.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, like Coco would sit there and be like, "Hey, I want this. Can I have my my toy that I like to play with?" And
Nobody
and
said
also saying things like just talking about nature too, like very like not just simple like asking for shit, just being like nature feels great, that kind of stuff.
Dude, I saw this one.
Hey, there's
They were watching a movie. It was like Coco and her trainer. And it was some really old, sad movie. And Coco was crying and making signs for tears and turning away from the TV to not watch because, like, the dad was going away for war.
Yeah, there's that part of the movie that Coco couldn't watch. Yeah.
So nice. What about the other chimpanzee who thought she was a human, was sexually attracted to humans, and was very, very, very like distraught? They were like, "Here, you're free. Be with other chimps."
Right. Yeah. She didn't want to go.
No, she didn't want to go.
Well, people are sexy, I gotta tell you.
People are fucking way sexier than chimps. Look at a chimp. It looks like my ass.
Baboons, though.
Look at those terrible flaps. Face flaps.
See,
You can
orangutans
use-
are cute. Okay, let's go around the room. Who would bang an orangutan?
a
Joe Rogan.
Banging orangutan. As Dave Chappelle put it, that thing will rip your dick off and throw it in the tall grass, never to be seen again.
I'll go for it, man. Sure, why not?
That would be it would rip out your dick and your spine in the same motion.
Nobody fucks monkeys and people.
Like Predator, but through the dick, just
And then hold it up, and then you'll just see words appear in the sky say fatality.
Will it rip your dick off, though?
Not getting the monkey puss on a Tuesday and then hitting up Charlene on a Thursday. That just ain't fucking happening around these
She
days.
can
Come on,
sign,
man.
she can text.
How
Imagine
strong a
like
monkey is.
imagine getting texts from a gorilla, okay?
Oh my god! Every 5 seconds, banana this, banana that.
100, 100. It's like indistinguishable from some people.
Hungry. Time for sex. Hungry.
The only way you're banging a monkey is if you train it to suck your dick without peeling it first.
wait. Is that not what my messages say for me? You're gonna just like banana this, banana that, have sex with me.
That's
I know what it's all about.
that's basically how I text women. Isn't that normal?
I mean, the moment you're grabbing around that area, come on, dude. Any animal's gonna be like, nah, man.
I just
Nah,
want to
not
say,
today.
welcome to Ardbeg. How's it going, man?
Hello.
Welcome.
Ardbeg's pretty cool. He's a pretty chill guy.
Cool.
And he's got soundboards for fun.
Soundboards for fun. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like he has
I don't
he has an audio console, or
Well, for all intents and purposes, yes, but and I'm not at it right now, so I can't give you a sample.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
What kind of
there.
console do you have? I used to do live sound engineering.
Well, it's not a, it's all
Like a Mac keyboard.
just on my computer.
Oh,
No,
oh.
it's just all on my
Oh,
all on
okay.
my computer. But I have a little Stream Deck. If you're familiar with that, it's a little shot box.
Interesting.
So,
What are you using? Ableton, Logic, Fruity Loops?
Nope, it's just playing straight up WAV files off the computer.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But yeah, I'm using Audition to sweeten them and make them all
Oh, okay.
level and
Cool.
matched and whatnot. So
Does anybody think that humans' IQs will continue to get higher and higher?
Was IQs?
Human IQs,
Human
or the IQ of any animal, I suppose.
I think
think-
so, because they have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah, sapiosexuality is on the rise. So
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, which is really interesting. It's but yeah, sexuality, and it seems. I mean, it's to see a huge differential compared to where we're at now. Give it. Yeah, I mean, in even something as short as 1,000 years, 5,000 years, you're probably going to see if this sapiosexual niche continues. I mean, you would suspect to see the general mean just grow. And then if you're talking 1 million years, then of course.
Yeah, well, that assumes that the sapiosexuals are the ones having the most kids.
Well, yeah, that's a problem. I'm just saying if that becomes dominant, but it's not there yet. I mean,
What are you guys talking about? Like,
people who are attracted to intelligence sexually.
I think it's a consistent thing. I mean, I think there's a liability with trying to make a mate out of somebody who isn't meeting the equivalent standard of your intelligence to survive.
Well, and you also have the problem of like, just because two intelligent people have a kid, that does not mean that kid's going to be intelligent.
Yeah, that's also
Right.
true.
Yeah. It's more of
Yeah.
a long-term evolutionary trend that
Yeah.
Yeah, on a
looking at.
large scale, they will get more intelligent. Like on an individual level, you can't guarantee that
No.
your kid will be
No.
more intelligent,
Exactly.
but there's a strong correlation with it.
Yeah. You need a lot of time. That's the thing when we're looking at
Yeah,
evolution. It's just
and humans, that's like 10,000 years at the
yeah.
minimum,
That's what
right?
I said.
mean,
Like
to see.
that would be considered a microevolution.
Well,
Yeah.
then what's the scale when we get to like 200 IQ, given the rate that we're at now?
Well, IQ is actually adjusted, so people would probably have a 200. A lot of people would have a 200 IQ if we went off like the original IQ test. They actually adjust it every so often to make it harder. So
Well, that's
the
just
idea-
bias.
No, well, what they do is they always level it to 100. So they say, okay, the median is we're always going to keep it at 100, but they do see that it's creeping up. It's called what, the Flynn effect, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Flynn effect.
Yeah, it's
That's
an
great.
increase in human IQ with the increased emphasis on abstract reasoning,
Right.
which we didn't do before. Not that long. We haven't been doing it for that long.
Right.
Yeah, so it seems to me we're already in the position where like people are getting smarter, regardless of what it looks like because of social media and all this shit where you see morons all the time, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
The-
and
the
that's
smart-
a
the
hard
smart-
thing.
Well, the smart
That's
people
something
aren't doing stupid shit on Twitter that gets fucking put in the news, you know.
But that's something I struggle with because genetically, I think right now you can only show that you can only go so far, right, with your IQ. So like if you have an 80 IQ, you can work really hard, but you can only max out like to 110, 120. What does this do when you have certain groups of people that are just getting smarter and smarter and smarter, and you have another groups of people who are getting smarter, just not at that fast rate over a long period of time, and now you just kind of have like
Yeah.
the dumb and the smart, right? And then you
Smartness.
it's
is
hard to
different.
relate, it's hard to do business, it's hard to include them into a worldview.
Yeah. Smartness.
It is a big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference is that you're talking about it's like one group is like drooling fucking idiots, like can barely fucking tie their own shoes, you know, like
I'm talking about sand people, okay?
Mixed groups is up here, so it's like we're becoming more homogenous, not more split up into groups. Like once we start colonizing other planets, we could see some knuckle draggers on Venus while some smart people on Mars or whatever. But
So it's
close.
so what you're saying, Dalsu, is that some people need loving too?
Oh yeah, there's dumb hot people, dude. There's really, really dumb, really.
Hell yeah.
Isn't that most hot people? I mean, if you're hot, you don't have to put any, effort for anything. So you're probably going to be pretty
That's-
fucking dumb.
That's actually really good brought up. I mean, maybe you're dumb, but you're hot, so therefore your species survives a little bit further, or your genetic disposition.
I don't know. I feel like maybe that exists for the really beautiful people.
Yeah, like models and stuff like that. Because
The-
they're probably.
No, I mean that's even when I become kind of a monkey.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty good, except I get to be kind of a monkey when the girls show up,
Yeah.
and then I feel my IQ dropping.
I just want to outline something though, guys. There's a difference between IQ, your intelligence quotient, and smartness or dumbness. IQ is just a measure of the computability of your brain. There's no way you can only affect your IQ score by a couple of points extra if you practice up and you get familiar with the kind of testing, but it's made to be an objective test of what your brain can do. It's not something you study for or get better for. That's what that is. And then smarts is of course a different thing.
Yeah, and there are plenty of people with probably a
How do you
low
judge
IQ that had just learned the right lessons and that they're successful.
Nivik, there is no judging. There's just scoring. So it's just objective scoring of a test with objective measurements to measure the computability of the brain.
Who decides what the right answer to the test is?
No, Mace. These are tests that are made that have objectively right answers. Like there's no other answer that you can put in.
Right. So if I saw Sam like in a easy IQ question, just to give an illustrative example, if I put an arrow pointing north, then an arrow pointing east, then an arrow pointing south, and I say, what is the next item in the sequence, you should be able to see that it would be an arrow pointing west. And any other answer is you didn't get what the pattern was.
Yeah, you're failing the pattern recognition, Mace. That's the point.
I took an IQ test when I was 9.
Yeah, but what if
there was one question on the test.
Unintended pattern.
It was they gave me 4 tiles, and they were simple drawings of a woman, and I can't remember completely, but maybe another person. But they were at a sink in a home doing dishes, and there were 4 tiles, and you had to order them in chronology. And I looked at it for a minute, and then I saw the pattern. But then you could take the tile at the end or the beginning, and you could switch it and put it at the beginning. And so it was a circular pattern. So once you saw the pattern, you could begin it at any of the 4 tiles. Right. And I asked the person giving me the test, and I said, "There's no starting point. There's a pattern here, but there's no starting point." And she said, "You just have to pick the answer. Pick the one. I can't help you." And I just chose the most logical one. I started with the pile of dirty dishes, and then I ended with the clean kitchen. But any of the 4 tiles could have been the beginning point. And my neurotic mind has thought about that for years and years. And I wish I would have just broken the rules that they gave me and put them in a circle rather than a linear straight line. But anyways, so that is in reference to what you were just saying, is that they're objectively correct answers, because there were many correct answers in that test. But I think the ultimate correct answer would have been if I probably would have broke the rules and put the tiles in a circle rather than in a linear straight line.
Yeah. So Mace, the same methods of telling what is the right answer on a math test are the same methods that are being used in the IQ test.
What if you find a different pattern?
Then Nivik, these questions are built so that there is no other rational answer but the one that's available. It doesn't matter.
Right, and usually they're given as multiple choice tests.
Right.
So given the other choices are irrational.
Right, exactly.
Okay, maybe you could find some other answer, but the other ones ain't right.
And there will also be, you can get your language IQ tested. You can get your memory IQ tested. You can have general IQ tests. There's a lot of different ways you can have this tested, but it's an objective measurement, not any of this EQ nonsense that's all subjective.
I don't even know what that is.
Travis, what are your thoughts? Like your claim that they're all objective,
I'm just making a hypothetical of it being wrong.
I took an IQ test and it wasn't objective. Like there wasn't an objective answer.
So, Villain, I don't know what you're referring to. If you could find like an example of the same type of question, we could look at it. But IQ answers, there are right or wrong answers, right and wrong answers to the test. They have to be that way.
And I would also say that the tests have predictive validity. I mean, you can make predictions about people's futures based on the results of this test. Not individuals, but you can make predictions on groups.
Yeah, just on groups, and the predictions are general, but you can say that in this field, people with this IQ range tend to find it much easier and have an easier time in this field of work than people who have to create extra steps and tricks in order to keep up with the others who have a lower IQ general mean.
Are there any fields out there where having a higher IQ is not helpful or the opposite of helpful?
Definitely.
There's several reports of people filing lawsuits against police departments because they were found to have too high of an IQ and they were disqualified because of that. And then the claim that the police departments had were that if your intelligence was too high, you would get bored with the job and you would not stay long term.
Would get what with the job?
You'd get bored.
Oh, I thought it would be that you'd question your orders too much. I mean, I know that's similar to you can't have too high of an IQ and be in the military there. I should say be certain jobs.
Yeah.
You want to have a high IQ if you're in like intelligence.
Yeah, and one thing again, I want to say that you can still, if you get professionally tested by Mensa, and Mensa gives you what your IQ is, they will be able to tell you exactly what your IQ is. That does not mean like if you're given a 90 score and that's your IQ, that doesn't mean that you can't go on to build successful businesses and do great things and even work in quantum mechanics. It doesn't mean that you can't do that. It just means that they're it should inform you and prepare you that if you want to do something that tends to typically take someone with a 140 plus IQ to work in let's say, just as an example out of my head, theoretical physics. And you might have to make up some ground, like I said, with tricks of the trade and work ethic and things like that to try to make up. What that doesn't mean is that it makes up that IQ differential. It just means in the work output, you're probably going to have to do more work from a brain capacity perspective than the person who has the higher IQ. That's the advantage.
Exactly.
But don't take it to mean that you're not going to be a successful businessman and create amazing things and become an astronaut if you have 100 or if you have a 90 IQ. It's all fine and dandy. In people that change the world, we see huge variations across the board in different areas.
So there's something between being knowledgeable and smart.
Also, don't think because somebody has a lower IQ than you that they're like less. You know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, we do, and without having to make this whole conversation about IQ, we do see trends like low IQ, high testosterone in the jail system. Males, that's the majority of males who we find in prison. So you can use IQ to learn things about large groups. The problem is when people take these and start applying them on a person-to-person level, that's where you don't understand what that statistic means and what it's supposed to be used for.
If we're talking about the future of the mind, very valuable technology would be to improve IQ.
Yeah, well, this might be a question for everyone. Editing the mind of your future children before they're, as they're being mixed, right?
Editing the genes like Gattaca level.
Yeah. So if you could actually scale and choose the IQ, are you going to do you want your child to be gifted in the 175 plus range, or would you want them to just not too much pressure from the nervous system on the computability, just enough for them to do really well without having to put too much hard work in? Like, how would you guys decide, or would you not touch it at all?
I think of it like video games, like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, when you're deciding your character and like you choose one quality, another quality goes down. In my life, my experience has been the most happy people I've met have been relatively
simple,
stupid. Yeah. The happiest people are like dumb, even handicapped.
Yep.
So and it all depends on what the person. See, when you start trying to think about this, you have to kind of take into consideration that you don't know what this person, your future child is going to like, right? So the IQ that you choose may make it harder for them to like the things that they like. For instance, or with certain neurological conditions that when a lot of people who with high IQs tend to suffer from clinical depression. And it's like, how much of all that do you take into consideration?
Yeah, a lot of the high IQ people I know there's a certain IQ. It's almost like you get so nihilistic, you stop believing in God, and you realize that the Sunday school lessons that you were taught aren't literally true. So then you get angry, and then you ditch all of religion, and then you don't have a purpose in your life, and then you blame your parents for everything. And
that's because I mean, when I got to that point, I never felt like, oh, I was lied to. Like I never had that reaction.
That's because you've discovered the miracles of marijuana, brother.
Well, so like when I came to that conclusion, I was like 13, like way before I ever smoked weed. It's just like, oh man, like, yeah, this is what I was taught. Like these people thought they were doing the right thing. I still love them. They're my parents. I don't have any like negative feeling about that. I wasn't angry about anything. It was just more like a realization when like, oh, here's what's actually going on.
Did you go through the stage of loving it when you saw religious people get pwned in an argument?
Yeah, maybe when I was like 18 or 19, with like Christopher Hitchens and stuff, when he had fucking,
the hip slap compilations.
And like, yeah, it's like when I was younger, I was like, oh, hell yeah, fucking get him. But yeah, you grow out of that pretty fast.
Yeah, you start realizing that people are more than these ideologies.
Yeah.
How would you go about developing IQ?
Oh, really?
So what do you
do? Really, the only thing that we can do right now is like Travis said, you can improve it a couple of points by practicing a lot of the tests and learning some of the techniques. But really, one of the only other nurture techniques that we know of improving IQ is breastfeeding.
No, I'm talking about like critical thinking and how to think. A lot of people, they just are told what to think. They're not told how to think in schools. I think is an issue. They don't really know how to rationalize. All they do is regurgitate information.
I don't know if that's IQ, but
problem with
it's intelligence, isn't it?
That's not IQ
from the home than it is school, though.
Yeah, Nivik, that's not
becoming more intelligent. That's intelligence, though, right?
No.
No.
See, this is what you're not understanding, and this is a couple times now. There's smartness, what you're talking about, like using skepticism to determine what is, questioning and continuing to question things. Like you're talking about the knowledge of how to use certain mechanisms that are at our disposal to help keep our mind clarified for as much of our life as we can. And that's knowledge, but knowledge does not increase your IQ. Your IQ is fixed.
No, I'm talking about how to rationalize properly.
I know, but don't
about the knowledge of the answer to the IQ test questions.
Because you process knowledge logically in order to get an understanding of something.
Mace, you just asked about the knowledge to answer. They're not questions that you can acquire knowledge for. They're not tuned to do that.
Well, yeah, if you've never seen a compass before, then you're not going to be able to answer the north, south, west,
We're talking
east.
about language and what shapes mean. You need to have some base understanding going into these with things like that. But the knowledge requirement is on IQ tests is very, very low.
See, when you know what something is in information of knowledge, and you know what another thing is, those two things combined and what would likely happen based on what those two things are is being logical. I know what water is. This is a rock. I know what a rock is. I know water is something that is, you can go through it, and a rock is something heavy. So I therefore would conclude that if I take a rock and I put it in the water, what would happen is that it will go straight through the water. It's not going to sit on the top of the water. That's just knowledge and logic are connected in one part. In you take information, and you process it logically. In a cause and effect reaction,
fine.
everything is
all that stuff.
Everything that's cause and effect is logic.
Yeah, Nivik, nothing to do with IQ.
Imagine IQ is like the rotations per minute. It's the RPMs of your brain.
Can I just ask a quick question, Travis?
Thinking speed.
Yeah, I can reframe. I had a very smart person describe IQ to me in this way. It's the ability to sort, store, and recall information.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So if you think about if you're better at sorting and storing and recalling information, it doesn't mean you have information.
Right.
But it will help you process it faster.
And that's what the test is tuned to measure. What was that, Bruno? You had something?
Yeah, he literally just said what I wanted to say. It's about me. I thought it was patterns, the ability to recognize patterns, numbers, shapes, whatever, all that. But it's sort of the same thing, I suppose.
It's a combination of things, though, in a way, right?
Yeah, those are actually two different things. Like pattern recognition is different than the ability to take information, sort it, organize it, and replicate it. So that's actually those are two different areas in an IQ test that they test you on.
How about we make a virus that increases IQ?
See, that's where I wanted to go. Like, what about the idea of also just having like nanobots or something that just increase the connection from all your brain, neurons. So all of a sudden you can take a shot, like me and Bobby were talking about earlier about the pill. Like you could take a shot, and all of a sudden it like just interacts with your brain in a way that like your neurons and everything, or like there's no blockage anywhere. Everything's just popping off, and you can.
That's interesting.
Move through things faster.
Yeah, don't get me started on nanites. I'll go a little crazy.
Because people become accidental geniuses, right? What was supposed to people figure out how that works. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's cases where like somebody got like traumatic brain injury, and after that they could just like play fucking Mozart on a piano, no problem. They were just nailing it. They could just do it. They could hear something being played and just repeat it verbatim. So there's something there to that. And yeah, if you could figure out what's doing that, make nanobots to reproduce that, brain state or whatever, the actual like
wire it a certain way
at that time. Yep, exactly. That I do think that's going to happen. Not in our lifetime, but that's definitely going to happen.
It does. There is something about non-natural creativity that makes me feel like it's going to lose some of its luster. Like if I can just take a pill and play and create music like Mozart.
But that's the thing. It wasn't creativity. It was just straight reproduction. So,
okay.
So so it's not like he was all of a sudden creating new masterpieces. He could just hear something and then play it back on piano perfect.
Yeah. So one thing about that is, Bobby, you were onto something in that it will be less rare than it is now. A lot of these skills, like the thing about like someone who plays classical perfectly on the piano is that there are different levels of that, but when you get someone that's like perfect at it and does just the accenting is so perfect, you're just in awe. But if that becomes the general mean, then perhaps people will still want to go and see people who came about this quote unquote naturally, or the old school way.
Even if they didn't come about it naturally, but people who still had whatever, but then created something new, and it wasn't just
Sure.
It wasn't just a recreation of something already. I think,
right,
and I think that's where it'd be beneficial, right? Because if it got to the point where everybody could just do it, like the fundamental drive at that point would be like, okay, you've got to create new stuff. I think that would be interesting.
How about a virus that we infect everybody with that enhances creativity? And now everyone has the ability to make up new stuff at a higher rate than everyone ever before.
It depends. Like to get back to like the creativity point.
I have a theory on that.
Even though chess engines are so much better than humans at chess, we don't like to watch chess engines play each other. And we still like to watch humans play each other.
Yeah, even bad chess players are more fun to watch.
Yeah, but we still gather around for the best chess players in the world. So if we have this situation where everyone, well, hopefully we end up in the scenario where everyone's either choosing to increase their intelligence in some way, or the people playing chess are at least. And so you could have like the grandmasters that can beat the latest AI by playing each other.
That's never going to happen again.
I mean, I don't think so either. But maybe they connect through the cloud to the AI or biology, quantum aspects, and then we could beat, if we had better biology, we could possibly beat a computer.
So I just think we're just going to become Borgs. I mean, I'm resigned to that fact at this point. Humans are just gonna we're gonna incorporate everything. We've already got bionic arms. That's happening.
We already are cyborgs, just not very good. We're just not very good at interfacing with computers yet.
Yeah, we're connected to tech already.
I think about people have a cochlear implant. That is that's when I say Borg. I'm talking about Star Trek Borgs.
Yeah, but we got the artificial pacemaker.
yeah.
Have they experimented with the cochlear implant yet? Can they send signals that are that bypass I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Your understanding that you're receiving a signal. Your consciousness.
Subliminal.
Yeah, can they
messages.
just download judo skills into your cochlear implant?
Yeah, not yet. It's sort of like what we were talking about earlier, having some sort of chip in your brain where you could just hear something or watch a series of QR codes and you would just download information.
Yeah, and if you think about it, when you're watching a TV screen or a computer screen, this is simply a bunch of lights flashing, and it processes images into your brain, and then you experience something, and you bypass all of that. You are not thinking consciously about a bunch of lights blinking in front of you. You are experiencing the message that those lights are blinking. So I wonder, does anybody know, has there been any experiments with the cochlear implant where they just send some complex Morse code in, and then the guy's yes, Ian, I can't even think. What's the Einstein's thing? E equals MC squared. That's what I was trying to say. Yes, I know this now.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We can't be the only dorks that have thought about this, right? There's got to be some more sophisticated people than us that have thought about this and let's experiment on this.
Yeah,
so they have brain implants to restore people's hearing. And I was in
that's a cochlear implant. It's a thing that goes in.
Yeah,
that we're talking.
So I was at an Iron Maiden concert. I just want to tell a funny story. I was at an Iron Maiden concert, and they had a surprise band opening for me. It was Megadeth, right? And it was the first time Megadeth had played together in a really long time, and so it was a surprise. And they played just horribly, and the venue was not good for Megadeth. All you could hear was echoes of double bass drum the whole time, and it was just torture the whole time.
Couldn't even hear Dave.
Yeah, and right before the Megadeth they came on, they brought this like 16-year-old girl up on the stage, and she was born deaf, and they had put a cochlear implant in her, and this was the first time that she was ever hearing. And so the first experience of her ever hearing was a Megadeth concert, where it was like the first time they played in like 10 years. I feel so sorry for that girl. She was like, "Okay, turn it off." What could she have been thinking?
I do think they have done tests with like cochlear implants though, where people can perceive like sounds outside of what we normally hear. You know, that sounds that are beyond 20
like dog
hertz.
whistles.
And yeah, like it's like sounds that are above like 20,000 or 20,000 hertz, and people can hear it because it's produced in a way where it's actually sending something to your brain. It's not going through your the fibers in your ear that normally pick up frequency.
The last guy, did you actually see that concert where the girl with the implant?
I was there, yeah.
What was her expressions?
I don't know, I wasn't watching her. I don't think they had the camera on her the whole time. They just brought her up on stage and they said, "This girl got an implant. It's the first time. They're just turning it on now. This is the first time she's ever heard real sounds."
I wonder what it would be like because if she can even understand it. Because like that movie, what's it, At First Sight, where the guy's blind and they give him sight and he can't tell the difference between an apple and a picture of an apple on a magazine.
Yeah.
I imagine it takes a couple of years for your brain to really figure out what hearing is.
I have a view on creativity. When people are isolated and they aren't as connected to other people, to bringing more knowledge and to rationalize with logically in order to figure out problems and overcoming them and innovating to address a problem. You know, if you're more connected with people, you take in many different perspectives and you add them to your own. It broadens your mind and who you are, you know what I mean, as a person in addressing a problem. And because you're more of knowledge and you can more rationalize with that knowledge, you can more have an idea how to approach a problem because you have a deeper understanding of it, because you're more knowledgeable. And because you could rationalize that knowledge is information logically, you can more have an idea how to overcome it because your mind's more enriched. You know what I mean? And so it makes you be more likely to be creative. Or if you're isolated and you're not really as connected to folks, you know, you're more likely to be backwards and ignorant because you're not as exposed to different things, you know, and different people. So an enrichment of being around a lot of multiple people with different views, you know, and being very experienced in an enriched environment, it could increase your creativity. That's why like America is good with ingenuity, because there's a lot of different minds that that collaborate together, and it comes up with new different perspectives and new unique innovative ideas. And I'm just guessing.
Are we sure that we don't just
unlike with China?
Are we sure that we don't just pilfer the intelligence and the talent from the rest of the world and notice that they're working on cool stuff and then say, "Hey, come on over here to this country and we'll fund it," then take the credit?
That's the smart thing to do.
Actually, I'd say right now per capita, Israel has the most creativity.
What has most creativity?
I'm going to throw that out there. Israel does right now. In terms of the amount of technological revolution that they come out with per capita? Yeah, absolutely.
Per capita, but I mean, you got to realize how small it is, like how small of a country Israel is compared
But
to
America's
the United
diverse
States.
anyway, so to say that we steal
well, that's, I mean, I don't know. Referring to things in that way just seems, it's like, I don't know, not sing the forest for the trees. You know what I mean? Like, Israel works very closely with American companies, and like it's all this. So even a company in Israel has like people in the United States working for them. You know, so it's not like, oh, this country did this thing. So that's what I'm saying. Like trying to say, oh, this country is like this, and this country is this. It just, I think it just misses the point of what's actually going on.
No, I'm just pointing out that I in my experience, at least in the realm that I work in, I see a lot more ingenious things that are coming out of Israel than any other country.
I'm just asking,
like pretty much all the revolutionary ideas that in my industry at least that's where they're coming out of, energy and water conservation and stuff like that.
My theories on what grows creativity. What do you think? Where it comes from? Is what I was kind of
saying. Comedy.
I don't know. Creativity.
Israel has a disproportionate number of, or I should say, Jews a disproportionate number of comedians per capita.
Yeah, they're really high IQ per capita. I mean, the average IQ in Israel is like what, 115 or something like that.
The Ashkenazis,
and they're hilarious.
So I mean, where do I think creativity comes from? I think that's really hard. I bet you there's some psychological experiments that, you know, creativity, I think, is sort of it's one of the dimensions of openness. Is that right? Maybe if you so maybe there might be brain structures that promote openness or demote it, and like maybe the amygdala being oversized could.
What do you think of my theory? What I just mentioned with how it came about, how it comes about. When I was talking about how people are more isolated and people are more connected,
Well,
you don't think people learn from each other?
So there's certainly, if you're exposed to more different ideas, then you're going to be able to synthesize ideas from other areas that are unrelated.
This is the same diversity argument that's made for employment across the country. That's like, we must have more people.
I'm not going there. No, I'm not going there.
But it's the same argument.
It is a bad analogy though, Nivek. Here's the reason why, because you're trying. I don't know necessarily what you're referring to as creativity, but look at somebody like Isaac Newton, who was basically a fucking hermit, and what he did was extremely creative. Just because it happened to like be real and relate to like physics in the real world doesn't mean what he came up with was not creative. So I don't know what you mean by creativity. Are you just talking about like art and music and that kind of stuff? Because engineering, theoretical physics, all that stuff is just as creative.
I'm just saying, like, exposure to people in an enriched environment.
Yeah, I think an easy way to test that is
the same argument made in employment.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about
that. An easy way to test that without getting political is to just like, let's just say, pick the top 10 most creative people that you can think of, and then look at, you know. And I'm not suggesting we do this now, but look at what their lifestyle was like.
You can have diversity among one race because people can think many different ways along the same race. So the race is irrelevant. Race doesn't exist.
I would agree with that. There's more diversity within a race than there is between them.
I'm just trying to I'm trying to take that out as an element.
They're more alike than they are dissimilar, but the same argument's made within the races.
What does that even mean?
Are you coming to this with like a political axe?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get it out. Okay. And somebody's inserting it in. I said, don't get away from that. And I'm talking, and I'm saying, I'm not talking that. I said diversity of the mind, you know, and somebody's like, oh, this political this and injecting people. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I don't see race. People can be diverse of the mind, you know. I mean, like, what is race? Anyway?
I never brought up race. You did. I just
that's what you're referring to, though.
No, you're doing that. I never said anything about race once.
Because we don't want.
When you're talking about inclusion.
Well, you're talking about
hold on. Let Bobby finish here.
Okay, so I mean, yes, a lot of times in America, if you're talking about a diverse workplace, that means something very specific and it means something very political. But if you're talking about a diverse workplace where you're talking about diverse thought, then yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a very good word, because most people think that when you say a diverse workspace, you're talking about.
I didn't say that.
Of race.
I was talking about the
culture.
Mind. I just said the word diverse.
Nivek, hold on. Let people finish their thoughts. You know, I mean, like, I know, like, sometimes somebody will say something back. Oh no, and you want to cut in, but like, let people finish their thought before you know.
Yeah. So I think instead of diversity, I think it's actually the opposite of that. So I'm gonna throw out the opposite of that argument. In order to be creative in a field, the most creative people are people who are freaking antelope, what is it, gazelle focused, right, on that field for decades, and their most creative times is after they've got 10 to 20,000 hours of experience in a single field. So if you look at Isaac Newton, like someone mentioned, he wasn't super creative until he was like freaking 50 years old and had been doing nothing but physics for decades. Mozart, you know, his best, most creative work was decades into doing nothing but writing songs. He didn't freaking dabble in puppetry.
Okay, I have to fact check you on that.
Mozart was young, man. He was very young.
Yeah, Mozart died at 35 and was creating his first symphony at the age of 7, and Isaac Newton invented calculus
his best stuff
before he was 26 years old.
He'd probably been going for about 20 years.
Yeah, so Mozart had been going for 20 years before he made his best stuff.
There's no way a 7-year-old could create a symphony. I just
right.
Don't
so
believe
before
that.
So it just takes lots of experience and practice to refine your art, to refine your skill, to where you can do something that other people haven't already done.
Yeah, there are like 12-year-olds to this day who are like graduating with PhDs and shit. Like, so that kind of thing does happen. Like, there are those, like,
it's extremely
crazy
rare
out there. It is extremely rare.
But you also had someone that was like
Mozart's
focused.
Out there.
Mozart was focused at a very young age, through abusive ways, of course. So I mean, yeah, but that's pretty rare. But
he was still 20 years into. He was still 20 years into doing nothing but writing music.
A couple decades. Yeah, but he also hired other people to write his libretto for him because he didn't know, like, he's not writing Italian. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
but it's one thing to say someone could
operas.
get a PhD when they were really, really young. That can be like a mechanical, linear field of thought that you can just be like an idiot savant and like know how to do physics really well. But it's another thing to say that you're 7 years old and you could make a masterpiece of creativity.
How many hours did Stephen Hawking have in physics before he wrote The Brief History of Time?
But hold on. When he wrote that at 7 years old, when he wrote that at 7 years old, that's not a masterpiece. Like, he did it, but that's not something anybody ever listens to from Mozart. That's being like, this is a masterpiece.
Well, and so one of the things go ahead, Bobby.
At the risk of sounding like a jerk, I would say that a lot of people who say things like that are saying it because they can't do it, and so it's difficult.
I was going to say so. Yeah. I was going to talk on the music part of it a little bit, only because, like, classical music in its form, what he was doing was very specific. So there was a formula which he was working, and children have the ability to form melodies at a super young age. So he's kind of like working at a young age at the highest proficiency at a templated form of work, if that makes sense.
So having a bunch of minds that have different thoughts ain't a good thing.
What is it? What depends on what you mean by different, and then you also have to make value judgments between why that's better or worse. I don't understand. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. It's like, what does difference and diverse mind mean?
Check it out. I
And
can have an
also,
idiot.
what is
You
it-
can have
what
one
outcome are you
idiot.
talking about?
You can have an idiot, and you can have a person that's extremely smart, and that idiot might know a few things, and he can happen to say something and in information that is added to that person that is smart, that they can add in, that they can add into their processing of things that could make them come up to something that is smart. You know what I mean? That is ingenious.
Okay, so are you saying that, like, if somebody
that's how come everybody I talk to,
hold
no
on.
matter who it is,
Let's be
I
clear.
value their knowledge.
Okay,
go ahead, Grim. Go ahead. Grim, go ahead.
So someone who can do talented things without much, like Dr. Doolittle, who I agree with, and you need thousands of hours, is called a savant. Those people are far and few between. Everybody else, depending on what age, needs the focus and the amount of time to actually accomplish, to be professional in that field, to keep up with the what they call a standard of art or standard of music theory or whatever it may be, right? And so those do take time. You might have somebody who is mentally challenged, but they are focusing on that area for literally thousands and thousands of hours. Now, to use Dr. Doolittle's things, yeah, it's like 4 to 5 years. If you were at it nonstop every day, it'd take you a few years. So it's actually not that dramatic.
And I
I
will
was
say,
just trying
like,
to go as far as to be charitable to Nivik and say, it seems to me like the idea of having fit people on a team and having not so fit people on the team would hopefully elevate the not so fit people. When I say a team, I'm anything, but we could say football or soccer.
Anything.
You would try and bring up those who are not as skilled as you by surrounding them with people that are skilled, and hopefully the ones that work out gain better skills by being involved with those who are better than them. But I would say that's not the case often. Many times people are just unskilled and they just are left behind. So it's not always the case that you will elevate those who are below the rest or different than the rest. But I do give some credit to that, because it is true. Like, if you put some kids that are somewhat disparate in their abilities, there is some elevation that occurs when they're around. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest misused theories in education. I mean, you and I have talked about this, I think.
Inclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, having different skill levels, different IQs, different ability levels in a classroom is good, and there is an amount of elevation as long as the difference in skill level is small. So, like, if you have like a 7th grade reading level with a 9th grade reading level, and they're in the classroom together, they can all elevate each other, but they can't be 9th grade with 2nd grade reading level in the same room.
Yeah. Otherwise,
they've got to be.
Something that has been shown is that teaching is one of the best ways of learning something, or solidifying, crystallizing knowledge that you already have. So if you do mix people,
something,
right. But so just being in the classroom, if you're a high level performer, just being in the same room with someone that's low level isn't going to make you better. But if you make the high performers, teach the low performers, it will certainly make them better.
I could be wrong, but I was trying to be charitable to Nivik in that comparison. I was trying to make sure that's what Nivik was saying when I made that comparison.
What I was going to say, like, Doctor, to your point, there is like same thing. I work in IT, and like when you have to write a document, you have to go through all this stuff, and you end up like learning way more just off having to like think about putting something into a document than you would have just working on it otherwise.
Right.
All I was saying was how people become more enriched by exposure to an enriched environment and people that are very diverse. It's as a good thing.
And I would also say that a diverse workplace doesn't just mean people who are creative.
I don't mean.
And you can have uncreative people who are necessary in an environment. You need somebody that's very uncreative, that's going to go by the book and make sure that all the rules are followed. Right? You need those people too.
Well, this is the same dichotomy that we have in politics. You need conservatives and you need liberals. Like, the combination there makes some stability, because otherwise you'll tend too far in one direction.
Well, check it out. If you have a bunch of people, they all
if
thinking
you
the
go
same
too far in either
same thing,
direction,
then what
it's
good
a
are they?
goddamn nightmare.
If you have a bunch of people, they're all thinking the same thing in group in an echo chamber. Like I don't like what good is that? And some people, that's what they're about. They're about their echo chamber, and they tell each other what they want to hear in confirmation bias. I hate
if
that.
you really
I
want
like
to
a
get something
person.
done, though, guys, there has to be some alignment in motivation, because if you got a bunch of people pulling in different directions, one of the things you learn in leadership, if you ever have to practice that, is that you got to get everyone pulling in the same direction. So diversity is good, but at some point people have to gel into a team and subjugate their own desire to pull in one direction than what the direction the team's going.
You need different perspectives when you look at something.
Hold on, Nybeck. To me, that's literally the mark of a good leader, because you could have all sorts of different people with different opinions, but a good leader is not going to focus on things that divide people. They're going to focus on the things that unite people, and that's fundamentally true. You know.
Yeah. So you can have over diversity. Is what
one perspective that's not likely to work. If you have a 500 of them, which is better? You get what I'm saying? What if all 500 thought the same thing? You get what I'm saying?
So what you have to look at, Nyvek, is so you can have 500 people who have different
perspective approaches.
Yep. So what you do is you find the common
and 500
ground.
of the same.
Hold on, just fucking stop, dude. you find the common ground between all that, and then that's where you build your coalition. That's a good leadership, period. That's any good leader is doing that from the get-go.
No, sometimes a good leader needs to be able to flat out say no to this, yes to this.
They absolutely do say no to this, yes to this. But what I'm saying is they build a coalition of all the different groups of people that they have within it. So you have to find common ground.
You know what happens?
People.
You know what happens?
Like in the military, when you go into basic training, all of a sudden you come from a certain part of the country, and you're put into a barracks with people who have vastly different experiences from you. You know, so basically what drill sergeants do is they hit you right off the bat. But like when you see stuff in Full Metal Jacket, that's not really what's going on. That's maybe week 1, week 2, week 3 at the most, where the drill sergeant's just really laying into people. After that, what they do is they start building people up to have a common cause between them, and this is something the military has studied. They know where to find these common causes, even between people who are from all over the country.
You know what happens when you can't have another perspective on approaching a problem? Things break down negatively because you can't figure out a way how to approach something and overcome it because when what would happen is you'd want to attack and tear a person down in order to feel good. A lot of people psychologically, why they feel bad of themselves is because they can't approach a problem that makes them feel bad, overcome it, and therefore be content psychologically with themselves in approaching a problem, because their mind is limited when it comes to being knowledgeable and being rational, and logical enough in order to approach something and overcome it. You need a diverse, enriched mind of knowledge and different perspectives. You don't have to be diverse of many people. You need diversity of the mind.
Hold on.
And to get that, you need an environment.
You're not that person. How do you know you're not that person that you just spoke of?
You need diversity of the mind, not necessarily of different folks. Diverse because you can think in many different ways. I'm talking so it has nothing to do with people, it has to do with the individual.
I know you
how do you determine that?
You missed my point. Yeah, I know.
Okay, what are you saying?
I mean, it's nice to say that. It seems like Nivik, it seems like you have a point. The only thing I would say is the only way you can prove that is with the outcomes of measuring those people, right? How do you know that going in?
How would I know, like, what, how a person would feel?
No, how do you know that you have a diverse set of minds without observing them?
Okay. Well, I mean, you could. I guess the leader, like what Scott said, you would have people that can have different contributions. Like if you have a team, you don't want everybody to be a forward. You know, you need a defender and you need I guess a center or whatever. You know, and you'd have to kind of figure that out in order to because you need unity on a team, but you need diversity as well, right?
What I'm saying is, how do you, if you're going to create a culture,
a soccer team,
you know, not just the soccer team. We're talking about the mind here, not athletics. How do you get?
I was using it as an example of you can't have everybody be the same on a sports team. You can't have a soccer team with everybody being a forward. You need different.
Yeah, fortunately, it's not that much of a problem because everybody's different.
Or everybody's a linebacker. Yeah, that's true. Everybody is different.
That's what I'm going to say.
Everybody is naturally different. So yeah, you get to
your diversity of the mind is going to occur. Yes, that's kind of what I'm getting at. That how do you otherwise? Because let's say you're building your culture or your team or whatever you're building here, and your goal is to have diversity of mind. How do you determine that when you create the team or the culture?
Oh, I'm not determining anything. I'm just saying when you have a bunch of people together, that's just natural, and it's good for people to interact, to share thoughts.
Yeah, but that's exactly my point. People are different and have different minds from the gate.
Yeah.
In other words, what I'm saying, how do we distinguish what you're saying from the phrase "water is wet"?
I'm not distinguishing anything. I'm just saying it's good to have a bunch of people to interact with.
I think what he's saying is you shouldn't discriminate between people on any level because at the end of the day, they're all different in terms of their mind.
I'm not advocating that.
Is that what you're saying?
Me?
Yeah. Are you saying there's no point in discriminating about race and gender and stuff because they're all different enough anyway?
So that's what I have said. That's how I said don't because a lot of people, their minds are heading towards politics, and I was like, no, I was just saying like it's good to just having different information is good. That's all, and that's what people.
No, he's trying to advocate for fostering a culture of creativity by ensuring a diversity of viewpoints in the environment.
Yeah, and that's been distilled down because it's so difficult to get a diversity of viewpoints when making decisions. It's near impossible to get that without distilling it down to some characteristics that are manageable when having these discussions. See, these discussions that Divinovic is having are somewhat valid, but unfortunately putting those into practice we've seen has not turned out to be judging those you're putting together based on that high level critique of their characteristics.
Okay. Suppose I was like in a small town and I wanted 500 people, and you think I'll get all of them from the small town when I have a bunch of people from all over the planet to choose from? There's a good odds based off of people being in different areas that they would be,
see that we've gotten to location as the run.
But I would get a good sum of folks from the town. You know what I mean? Because people are naturally diverse.
Yeah.
But
what I'm saying is, I'm making the logical next step to the discussion, which you've already done that.
Well,
now
it depends.
By saying we need to look across locales that we can go to.
So he's advocating for outgroup preference.
If you have a problem that you want to approach, you do that logically in what you need for your team.
I'm just trying to cut through what I would say is the BS, let the rubber meet the road, as it were, and say this is what actually is going to occur when you get into these discussions. So what's going to occur is the same thing you did.
I understand, but when you interact with people, you make a rational decision on who you need and who you don't need, depending on what it is you're addressing.
Yes, but you're not making a rational decision. You're making a decision based on locale.
Using geography to substitute for ideas.
Mm-hmm. So if we get people from these different disparate regions of the world or town or cities or whatever the term is, that will be good because they're from different places. But you could have plucked out morons from all the places, but at least they're from different places.
Well, that was the argument against America, right? Because that's what people were. They were of diverse minds, right? They were men of diverse religions. They're diverse every fucking thing you could imagine. America was an abomination. When they saw it, it was like, what's up with all these people and they're ruling themselves? That's fucking ridiculous. Democracy? What the fuck is democracy? That's bullshit.
Don't judge a
Monarchy.
man by his intelligence, but by the quality of his character, and you will be surprised. And it makes sense when you see a majority of the CEOs in America ran by immigrants that come from impoverished nations or oppressed areas. I think intelligence is usually part of the solution. And then the other side of it is obviously the will, the capability. So what?
Yes,
wait, did you just say the majority of CEOs are foreigners from impoverished areas?
Not impoverished, but like, I wouldn't say impoverished. You're right. It's probably not a better way of putting it, but
that's exactly the opposite of what I've heard over and over, that there's too many white males in CEO positions.
No, what I've heard is that statistically, and I could probably try to find it, is that majority of the CEOs in the United States are foreigners that came. Majority. It's the CEOs or successful company startups have come from people who have came over to the United States from areas that that basically oppress them, right, in order to succeed. And so their will actually helped them create, even though that they didn't come off for education and high IQs or anything like that. It's just sheer willpower of wanting the purpose and the freedom to do it.
Isn't it strange how there are all these rumors about
where the bourgeois elite
what the
came
demographic makeup is of the majority of billionaires?
That's where the word bourgeois elite came from. What was that?
They're all foreigners. They're all white males.
I know.
They're all Jewish.
But you know what's funny? In fact, I was just talking to
Jewish
one
white
of my clients.
males from Israel.
I was just talking to one of my clients a couple of hours ago, and she was like, they own a couple companies, so they're doing a bunch of stuff, and she's like, oh man, I just feel so lost. And I said, honestly, what I've noticed amongst good, successful business individuals is that they know who to call. They know when to call the smart person, right? And they also know where the smart people are, because the smartest person in the room usually isn't like the leader, right? Sometimes, usually the leader just knows who to contact for the problem. If they need a lawyer, they go get a lawyer. They need an insurance guy, go get an insurance guy. They need an accountant, they go get an accountant, and they go try to find the smartest one to help them. They're not smart, right? And I work with really stupid, and I mean that like kind of lightly, but kind of dumb business people, right? Who just run companies that make $5, $6, $7 million a year. And you're just like, but they know who to call. They know that, hey, this is not my area of expertise. I'm going to stay the fuck in my lane, and I'm going to call somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about.
Real statistics. Okay, I just looked it up.
Yeah, please.
Okay, and this is the Fortune 500 CEOs only. Okay, so obviously there's more CEOs than that, but of the Fortune 5, those are the biggest and most powerful. So I suppose that's an important group. White men have lost power, but they continue to be the most dominant group in the corporate elite. They held 96.4% of the Fortune 500 CEO positions in 2000 and still hold 85.8% in 2020. So
what is white?
less than
they know what is
white
men.
They
hold the card up to the screen. They hold the card up to the
screen. I guess there's people that self-identify as Caucasian and happen to be male. And I suppose they didn't ask if they're like trans female, but
okay, yeah, that's true.
But it's just white men. It's just white men. Okay, white guys with gray hair are 85.8% of Fortune 500 CEOs in the year 2020.
All right.
Okay, so I think we can dispel that.
That's it. We solved
the myth
it.
That
we're all.
I think we can dispel any myth that most CEOs are from. Well, you know, I guess that, you know, those two could be true at the same time. We could still have most CEOs being from foreign countries that happen to be oppressed.
Countries in the United States, oppressed white people around the world that are wealthy.
Well, no, I mean, well, no, just those stats are just on the Fortune 500.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
there could be the Fortune 20,000 companies, right? Like the CEO of, you know, I have a friend. He's an Indian gentleman from Goa, who's the CEO of his own company, and he owns like 6 hotels in Yuma, Arizona.
Yeah,
you know, so there's a counterexample, and if you look at CEOs of small hotels or small businesses that own hotels, they're like 80% from India or Pakistan.
Sure, yeah, they are. Yeah, I know that as well. I mean, Fortune 500 is a small makeup of the number of companies in the world. So, you know, if we're going to start talking,
it's an important group. It's an important group. If you're going to say CEOs are generally from other countries. I mean, the CEOs of the most powerful companies are still white males.
Yeah, so I don't know what you just read because I got distracted. But 2019 report reports that finds that 45% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children.
But the immigrants don't necessarily. So Grimm wasn't saying they were non-white immigrants. He was just saying they're immigrants.
People that came from.
It could be a German guy from Germany that's like super white. Yeah. And he founded Siemens.
Whatever.
He founded
French.
Siemens. Yeah.
So
there you go.
So and where I'm coming from is I was listening to something the other day where it said like a lot of these people that come over are coming from areas where they're trying to be more free and capitalistic mindset, you know, and so it really does come from the stance of, you know, and you can see this a lot where you can get somebody that comes over here that might know, you know, very little, become a janitor, and easily in 20 years now they own a company that does janitorial services for multiple locations, you know, because they were really good at becoming a janitor and they realized that, hey, I can actually own a business, and they don't have to be the smartest person in the room. They just know who to call or who to hire to run the operation. But they're really good at understanding the client and understanding janitorial work because that's what they do. And those are usually the people that have passion in what they love, succeed very well.
People say hard work don't help anymore.
Hard work's okay, but would you rather work harder or smarter?
Both.
A little bit of both. That's right. Bruce actually has the answer to your question.
Those who work just a small amount more, like just 10 or 15 hours more per week, could make 40% more income. You don't have to work like your fingers to the bone.
Some people's like saying it's all about you. It's just that you're not working hard enough, man. If you just do, then bang, you're made.
Well, it depends on what you mean by work hard. What does it mean work hard?
Yeah, sheer labor is not enough. It's not just labor.
Which means that if you're going to work smart, what it means is that if you're going to be smart and you're going to make realistic goals, you actually have the wherewithal to achieve those goals, knowing that you could be the only one that does it. You might have to wear all those hats to achieve that goal. Are you willing to put in the work to do it? Knowing that, yes, smarts are only going to get you so far.
It's a little different now. In the past, when you work hard, the mobility was easier. But now it's like you just dare, and you dare till you die. That's it. You're not going to be like...
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, man. Yeah.
In the U.S., people move between income brackets more than any other country in the world, still to this day.
By using,
that's up and down.
By how though?
Yes, yeah, up and down. Yep.
How do you move between income brackets? You get an education, work hard at becoming more valuable.
Sacrifice,
experience,
all sorts of things.
Negotiate
experience.
Graduate high school. Stop making a bunch of new people before you're ready to do it.
Make an OnlyFans.
That works too.
That is what
kind of career path you want to get into.
That's the
world's your oyster.
Way.
I would say that
there's a difference between the potential of something how things should be than then saying, well, because we're doing better, then we should be okay with it. Something's always worse off than you. I mean, I don't.
If we're doing the best out of everyone who's tried, then you have no reason to be guilty.
If I'm capable of flying and I'm crawling,
sell their souls just to move to the United States because of the free market. You do know that, right?
I know.
He's just saying things could be better. It sounds like.
Yeah, well, no. But I'm just saying that that's like if I could chop off your right arm, it's like, well, hey, there are people with both arms chopped off. You should be happy that I just, you lost two arms. Well, there are people with
two arms. No, Nivik, that's not
leg,
arguing in good faith. Everyone is trying to do the best for their people that they can, and in America, you have among the best chances in the world. There is no reason to feel guilty about our system.
Yes, there is. And let's put it this way: if it's like if somebody's on their belly crawling and they're capable of flying, and you take your foot off of them just for them to get on their knees to walk on their knees, it's like, hey, man, you should be happy. I let you have the potential of walking on your knees. It's like, no, I should have full opportunity.
Should. Oh, okay. Should.
Yeah. You're full of it. There's how many countries in the world? Okay, and let's just say America. Every country in the world has their foot on the back of the person that should be. Everybody in the world has their foot on the back of somebody that should be flying. America takes their foot off the back of the person that should be flying, and lets them kind of jump. And you're like, well, you should have thrown them in the air so they could have gotten a little bit higher.
Well, hey, man, that's how progress happens. Yes, that's how progress happens. People fight
there's almost no nation in the world where people are more free to achieve their full potential.
That's how progress happens, man. People fight back and not being stepped on. It's like, what, people shouldn't do that? Like, you're against that?
Fight back against the serfdom.
No, nobody's against not stepping on somebody. That's a straw man. Everybody's for not stepping on people.
That's good.
Everybody here is for not stepping on people.
No, I think he means it as a metaphor, and metaphorically, you need to.
But if you frame it as all society is evil, that's just the same thing as calling out that you're a leftist. You're not.
Would you be okay with somebody treating you like crap in an office by saying, hey, if you were in Bangladesh, you would be whipped and kicked in the nuts, like you should be happy. You're in America, it could be worse.
You can't compare.
Something could always be worse someplace else.
Yes, it can be. Yes, it can be.
And if I do something bad to you, there's always something worse that could be somewhere else.
But it really isn't better anywhere else, is it?
You don't compare. You can't compare your situation to paradise. You compare it to the reality of what's around you.
Yeah. You compare it to what you could have been. You compare what you are to what you were before. Don't compare what you are to an imaginary place that doesn't exist anywhere.
Well, actually, no. You could get into politics in your country and then push for the utopia that you imagine.
Utopia.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about delusion.
You have these visions for great policies.
No, I don't.
In your
I'm just talking about being progressive. It's not a utopia. Are your views utopia?
Yeah, I'll buy you some yard signs, David. Go run for office.
I have some idealistic views of how I want the world to be. Yeah.
Okay, well, I can call that a utopia then.
Cool, what utopia?
It's a delusional utopia.
Yes, any utopia is delusional.
That's not
except Autopia at Disneyland, and that's just a really bad ride.
Guys, I have to say this is a really fucking entertaining conversation to listen to. Like, this is fun. I'm not kidding. It's fucking like the whole dynamic that's going on right now. Like, I've been muted for a while, but I was dying laughing there for about 10 minutes. There were some funny exchanges.
I'm funny to you.
Nivik, you add a fucking element to this that's needed, brother. I'm glad you. It's just sometimes, dude, just let people finish and then you get your chance, right? And then also not every time there is a pause, Nivik, it's your turn. Like, try to get other people involved.
Okay, I'll learn to shut the fuck up.
It wasn't your turn.
I don't want you shutting the fuck up, but
what exactly is the goal? At what point do you get to a place where you say, good job, folks, or do you continue to tell them you're probably not doing enough for somebody else? Like, let's put the shoe on the other foot here and say that you are on the burdened side of telling people they need to continually flog themselves.
Who are you talking to?
No, Nivik, who's saying like it's always better. Of course, it can always be better. But at the same time, like, what do? You don't kick someone and tell them they should be doing more for somebody else because somebody somewhere might have a problem. That's not a path forward.
Yeah, but how are you going to get them to do stuff if you don't kick them?
I would agree with you, but I'm also saying you can't continue to tell people that, hey, look at you, man, you haven't done enough today. There's still people out there there's still starving kids in Africa, bro. Like, yeah. The same thing happens to the folks that you're asking.
Say that to me. That's annoying.
Well, because he's saying, well, if you tell people that, well, look at how good you have it, you should be thankful. But in the same breath, you can't tell people like, look at how good you have it. You haven't done enough.
Yeah, look. When I was little, if I didn't finish my dinner, my mum would say, "Finish your dinner. There's kids starving in Africa." And I'm thinking, what are you going to mail this to them if I don't finish it?
Not all of us are starving.
You remember that? Bruno, would you like half a sandwich? I think I can mail it there by now.
Do they mail minced meat? First of all, nobody's mailing food from England or Britain because nobody wants that food, Mace. I'm sorry, but nobody wants.
Second of all, Bruno's in Canada.
I'm not Bruno.
No, that was Mace.
Oh,
wait, I don't understand. Was there a mix-up in the mailing? How did the beans get on top of the eggs? I don't understand. Was there like a shift in the packaging?
Franklin beans.
This is a problem.
What do you think should be done for other nations to not be poor?
We already are doing
that. You said should. You said should. Or could
not be.
What could be done? What could? Well, I mean, we are all on one planet. Why not?
We're doing the American thing, which is exploiting their resources while introducing them to modern society.
Yeah, and it is better than
what should be done to make other countries not be poor. That was the question.
As setting up a Nike factory in Malaysia. We're made to feel horrible about this because of the exploitation in quotes. But compare it to
a lot of Americans don't like that.
No, I think we should focus on the word "make." It seems like Nivik seems to think that other countries don't want to not be poor, and we have to make them not be poor. So, what should we do to make them not be poor against their will?
Oh, that's a lovely sentence. Knowing that we know, because we obviously know best.
Well, obviously they want to be poor because otherwise they would plant more crops than they consume and sell the excess on the market and manufacture more goods than they consume and sell the excess on the world market. So we have to make them not be poor.
As I watch a tear drop from the Native American's eye.
I mean, there's always going to be people poor. You can't
just make everyone poor, then no one's poor.
I heard
everyone's
poor,
resources.
No one's poor.
Well, we define poverty as power, and I think access to clean water and food. And so in the poverty line, and so basically globally, I think we're actually nearing the over 50% mark now. So there's less poverty in the world versus rich people, and someone might want to double check on that. But basically, poverty is going down at a drastic rate when you go to those standards. The other side of it is
access to clean water is something we can answer actually.
Yeah, so we help countries and stuff like that, impoverished countries for that kind of stuff. But then you also have areas in the world where they're just like, fuck off, like we're cool, right?
Listen,
so you go
we can't say that we've truly progressed in the world until every nation is fighting over trans rights. That is when we've brought everybody out of poverty. Everyone in the nation
that's not fair.
for trans rights. That's when we've made it.
Hey, Bruce, I don't think it's wise to go to some village and go, "Hey, I think some homosexuals are living amongst you."
Water and food. Is that an axe I hear being ground?
So Bruce, when he was a kid, wanted to be trans, and his parents didn't let him. And so he's mad that someone else wants to be trans now, and they get to.
Yeah, that's exactly why. I'm beside myself.
I'm just joking in case you didn't detect the joke. But I was just joking.
I've been treated poorly.
But look, you know what? We have some incredible developments in clean water. Like we can now actually create mobile reverse osmosis systems that can be essentially deployed anywhere, regardless of the quality of the water that they're uptaking, and make clean water, and with a little bit of salt to bleach, with some
energy is a tar pump. Yeah, go ahead.
With a little bit of salt to bleach, we can really clean up the water almost anywhere. And waterborne pathogens are like the number one cause for illness in the whole world.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you know about the guy? Well, do you know about the guy who invented the Segway? Not the CEO of Segway who died driving. The guy
he died driving it.
The actual
Why am I
engineer,
laughing?
the actual engineer who created the Segway, created the technology. He actually went into partnership with Coca-Cola to make machines that he distributed all throughout Africa. And basically what it was a machine, and he figured out through engineering, he's like, okay, so basically what we want to do is have water in here, and we're going to boil it. We'll collect the steam. We'll turn that into water. And he figured out a way.
It's called distillation.
It is distillation, but he figured out a way, like once the water's at a certain temperature, it takes drastically less energy to keep it at that temperature. So
it's at a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. So like basically what he and Coca-Cola did is they went all through Africa and like started installing these distillation machines all over the place. And it is a completely viable technology. It's there, just a matter of.
And it just takes a little bit of thermal energy. You can get that from the sun.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some of the policies in poor countries.
It's a little bit higher capital than RO, than a reverse osmosis, but it certainly is less energy input.
Yeah,
you don't need electricity.
Is just RO is just brutal. I mean, it just, especially if you're trying.
It's a lot of maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if with RO, if you're trying to pipe inland, so if you're doing anything going uphill against gravity, it's just.
So you need a pump.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not feasible at this point in time.
Okay, but distillation is something you can do with the power of the sun. You can get a really low energy vacuum pump and just really massively distill a lot more water with just solar power.
Exactly, and that's why he made the machines the way he did. Yeah,
and that makes it at least almost clean enough for people to drink in terms of the sediment in it.
Yeah,
but not necessarily the bacteria.
How sustainable is that for like large amounts of use over long periods of time?
No, it's a
short-term solution, right? That's a short-term thing.
No, it's very sustainable.
As long as you clean the tank of like the sediment that's like accruing over time, and you just have to keep adding water to it. Try to maintain things at a certain temperature so it doesn't require more energy to bring it back up to that nominal temperature where the balance of energy being put into the system is worth what you're getting out.
Is there one of the questions I would have is in the places that we would consider poor, right? Poverty, where we might be doing these sorts of things. Is the population declining to a point where like people aren't having children because they're so malnourished and poor, or is the population still sustained?
Oh yeah, their population growth is greater than the United States by far.
That's what I'm saying.
The more you help them, the faster they grow their population.
Yeah,
sure, but there's not exactly like a shortage of people in Rwanda where there's no clean water for their children to grow. They're growing and having children. I'm just wondering.
They have an R select.
You know what I mean?
Because their population is constrained by.
You do
by
know
the
that
random deaths of their children. They have a R selective reproduction strategy, which basically means you have to have 5 children so you can make sure one survives.
when I do want to hear from Bruno on this.
When you say like the population, like the percentage of population with no water is about 5%, right? Like really, like
with no water.
Yeah, it's not.
But how about access to clean water that's not going to get them
access to clean
infections?
water. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's about 5%, 10%, right? Like it's not a thing where you have 70% of the population with no clean water.
Yeah.
So.
Right, we're talking about that. We're talking about that 5%. That's what we're arguing about.
Yeah.
But still, half of the hospitalizations in the world are from waterborne illnesses. So if we shrink that 5% by half, then we can cut 25% off of the worldwide hospitalizations.
What do you think of jobs being shipped overseas to poor countries? Of people complaining about that?
Depends on what the impact they have on the economy. In some situations, that's beneficial for both parties. In others, it's not.
Here, they have an issue with it, a big, of jobs being shipped. But companies, they're okay with that. And a lot of the policies with the immigration, it causes a lot of people to come into the country.
Here, you mean the U.S.?
Yeah. A lot of the Monroe Doctrine policies of having a nation do things at the benefit of American companies' interests at the expense of the people.
Wait, how's that?
Wait, what is Monroe? Can you say that without saying Monroe Doctrine?
U.S. tells nations to do things at the expense of its people for the benefit of it and its business, because the businesses don't want competition.
How is it at the expense of which people?
I'm saying that there's a connection with the issues of America and poor people in other countries. They're tied. They're connected.
Let's say I'm the owner.
So when people just say, "Well, that's just poor people's problem in other countries," it's Americans' problems, not poor people's problems.
Let's say I'm the owner of Nike.
You have to let me finish too, though.
I'm sorry. You can finish.
No, because I'm just saying there's this connection between people who are poor in other countries. People say, "Well, they're just poor in other countries," but a lot of the issues that Americans have, they're connected with people that are poor in other countries.
I don't really get what you're saying.
Like jobs being shipped, you have companies that don't want competition. They don't want consumer choice in monopolization, and you have people going to other countries because they don't want a competitive choice of people going someplace else to buy from.
That is the competitive choice when they go to other countries to find cheaper labor. That's the competitive choice. That is.
No, I was mentioning the Monroe Doctrine. That's what was done in countries in South America.
The Monroe Doctrine doesn't have anything to do with capitalism. It has to do with colonialism. That's what I don't understand about your point. The Monroe Doctrine was basically saying hey, we're against any British expansion of colonial regions. That's what the Monroe Doctrine is.
British or Russian. Just really the Monroe Doctrine was just that America should have influence over our hemisphere, and we shouldn't be letting any foreign superpowers influence our hemisphere. They can stay in their own hemisphere, right?
Yeah.
Well, wanting hegemonic dominance is also imposing on other countries for them to be at the mercy of. What do you call it?
Okay, name a nation that doesn't want hegemonic dominance. That you would like us to answer.
Tasmania.
I thought you were going to say the south side of Chicago.
No, I mean,
chop.
If you're saying
Canada,
hegemonic dominance, if you're saying that wanting hegemonic dominance is bad, then there's a nation out there somewhere that doesn't want hegemonic dominance that you
Can
want us to
someone
emulate.
please explain what hegemonic dominance means?
Hegemony is
country
it's not oppression. It's spreading your ideas to your neighbors so that your ideas are winning over. It's the cultural version of colonialism, essentially.
It's homogeny, you know.
It's like feudalism
in culture. No, it's not like feudalism. Like
Yeah,
it's not.
What?
No, it's not.
No, it's like Americans believe in universal suffrage, and so we can try to convince all our neighbors to adopt universal suffrage. And if they do, then we are hegemonically dominant.
No, you don't want something to get too big and powerful.
You don't want them
as
to
an
become
as a potential. You don't want that competition. So you do things to have something be oppressed.
No, well, that's the thing. Not necessarily. Like, and I think all of us will agree that there's oppression, but like, I think what you're trying to say is the system's funnily made up for oppression. But even if we put in your ideal system, you know what would happen is people would still get oppressed.
It's associated with colonialism because the wealthy went out and they were colonizing. That colonizing was about making the people back home more poor.
Nivik, just listen to what Scott was saying. Like, you're not listening to his full, complete thought. Just Scott.
Yeah. I think you're missing what I'm saying. Like, what I'm trying to point out is people come up with systems, and hey, here's a system that this is what we think that's going to benefit us, and they start to implement that system. Over time, it turns out that system doesn't work, and all of a sudden, like, we've done some terrible things, and we change that system at some point. And I think that's a position anybody can really take. I think where you're trying to go is saying, oh, these systems are specifically designed to, subjugate a certain group of people. I don't think that's actually what's going on. There's no greater design in these things other than, people trying to make a system that benefits themselves at that specific time. And we can go through time and be like, okay, so just look at like the UK. At one point, it was Britain and Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, and they eventually came together and said, "Oh, we think it'll be better if we all, work together and become one thing." And that's sort of the point I'm making. There's no great intent to like keep people down. It's just how it goes. Like all of a sudden, once Great Britain said, like, okay, it's going to be all our countries, and they started working together, and it might have hurt other countries, but that's not the point. That's not the reason why they are doing it.
Lebowski.
I have to respond to that.
Well, yeah. Let me add something to what he's saying though before you respond to it. If you think your system is moral and it works better than other systems, then what could be more moral than encouraging your neighbors to adopt your system?
That's not what's trying to be done.
We're not encouraging our neighbors to adopt our system?
Somebody mentioned
somebody
said that I'm talking capitalism and I'm talking and what somebody said that it was the issue is capitalism, and I'm talking colonialism, and what I am talking about is that type of thing of
encouraging the rest of the world to adopt your system.
Of people in the past imposing on others in getting wealth of imperialism and taking it back home and having an inequality divide between people.
But you were just talking about us forcing other nations to not be impoverished.
a lot of people in the past, they had an issue with colonialism of their own country because that wealth that was being collected was brought home to make people more poor, to increase the social divide of the wealthy and the poor. That's how come people revolted against that system.
That's a straw man. Nobody went out
I'm saying that's what's
poor.
being done now. That is what's being done now. Well, a lot of what's being done against other countries is really about hurting, because the wealthy people, some wealthy people, they're the mindset. They don't care. They view poor people of no matter where they're from, here or.
If we're trying to make the rest of the world poor, we're doing an awful job of it. As someone just pointed out, that 50% of the people have been lifted out of poverty.
Well, that's good.
Due to our
they did an awful job.
Well, I will also say that it's not just us. China's involved in that. They're lifting their own people out of poverty. But it's by way of our intervention, sure. But I am just saying that we get a lot of credit, but not all of it.
But between Chinese hegemony and American hegemony, everything we touch is lifted out of poverty within not that long of a. I mean, not everything, but really a large portion of it. Of what Chinese people touch and what Americans touch is lifted out of poverty.
Yes, because they have people that think differently in America.
No,
because we have better systems that are better for people, and we teach other people to do things that are better for people.
Well, here's a weird problem, though. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever heard like the sort of platitude, like, yeah, capitalism's not the best, but it's better than everything else, and that it's lifted more people up.
That's Churchill, right? That's Churchill.
Yeah, than any other system. So the problem with that platitude at this point is communist China has lifted way more people out of fucking poverty than any other system.
After putting them in poverty in the first place.
Hang on a second.
Dude, like 500 million people over 20 years.
Chinese
middle class.
Wait a second. Chinese communism took a back seat when they adopted state-controlled capitalism and continued to. So the people they lifted out of poverty wasn't. They're not lifting people out of poverty with communism, though.
Exactly. Agreed. Yeah.
It was their Chinese capitalism.
Yeah, because China, like, you know, people were like, oh, China, they're just Marxists. I'm like, no, it's like a really
China's a hybrid, man. They're kind of communism, they're capitalists, and they're
totalitarian.
Yeah,
they're like a mix of
advantage. Yeah.
It's really not that dissimilar from the United States in a lot of ways. People like to pretend that we're not communists. Well, sure, we're not communists like China, but there's a lot of things that are shared across both of our nations.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really have a dictator, to be fair. I mean, not
technically.
Autocracy.
He is technically a
meritocracy.
Living god. Well, Xi Jinping is technically a living god. So, yeah, I mean it's a weird place to go.
They gave us
TikTok,
man.
Country.
They gave us TikTok. Let's be grateful.
Oh, TikTok.
They gave us TikTok.
What were we talking about before?
I don't know.
What was supposed to be the conversation?
It was basically like colonialism is the problem, or
way before.
The future of the mind.
The future of the mind. Yeah.
Holy shit!
And before you know it, Nivik winds us into feudal serfdom.
I know.
Never fails. Right? Isn't that right, Nivik? I got you nailed, Kevin.
It does always go into feudal serfdom.
He loves it. Can't get enough of it.
Because I don't think we change. I think we're still fighting that battle.
He just can't help it.
How do you talk about the future of the mind without feudal serfdom, though?
Let's actually,
because isn't that
an exercise?
I think in Nivik's world, you can't talk about fucking cookies without bringing up.
No, I know hegemony. No, hegemony is a very freaking salient topic when you're talking about the future of the mind, because you look at what you go on Facebook, right, and who gets the most likes and the most shares is the freaking dominant culture.
That Black Mirror episode, man, I'm telling you. Hey, Claire, have you seen that Black Mirror episode?
Claire loves Black
The one
Mirror.
with the guy on the bike.
The one I'm thinking of is the one where people raid each other on these social media apps. Sorry, Claire, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah.
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't.
I highly.
I don't think I remember that
sudden,
episode. I haven't
all of a
watched all
sudden,
of them.
she gets a low score and she just like goes into a like complete spiral.
Oh, I know. Fuck.
Until she like breaks out of the system. Though when she breaks out of the system, it's
That's
like
cool.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go live on a farm.
Spoiler
All right, Black Mirror files.
It came out in like 1902.
Spoilers.
I got a question.
This is like 6 years old.
It's like
Thanks for
7,000
spoiling
years
it.
ago.
6 years.
Bruce
Can I
hasn't
ask
watched.
a question?
Bruce
Raise my
hasn't even
hand.
watched The Matrix yet. Give him some time.
Yeah,
man.
but
I haven't seen that. Wait, The Matrix is one of my favorite movies.
Okay, good.
I haven't watched all the Black Mirror episodes. I watched a lot of them.
Yeah,
but I watched
fuck.
all
I
of them.
love.
Have you all seen that new movie, Gone with the Wind? Just came out a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah, it's a hot ticket.
That's my
Don't
favorite.
spoil-
You
don't
should see
spoil
that,
it
Bruce.
for me.
Was there feudal
favorite
serfdom
one.
in that? I think there was.
No, but it was definitely a dude
Ask
telling a
Nivik.
chick
If
how to
Nivik
fucking
doesn't
live.
know, I bet
I
you
do-
Nivik
I
has
do
a
wanna-
list
I
of
do wanna
every
hear from
movie with
Claire.
feudal
You guys want
serfdom.
to clown on me now?
Of course, they're going to clown on you. This is serfdom. You deserve it.
When you get a
You have
second
to be
topic,
clowned
then we'll
on
stop
this
clowning on you.
I do have a topic.
I do want to hear
have a
Claire.
topic.
Claire was trying to make a point.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do want to hear from
Yeah,
Claire
sorry.
first.
Well,
I'm the asshole. Sorry.
No, I wasn't trying to make a point. I was laughing. So
Go ahead
How
and make
dare
a point.
you?
All right, that's a point.
Fair enough.
That's a point in itself.
The relationship between serfdom and the future of mind.
you are all my serfs, and I am the landlord.
Yeah.
The landlord. That's how serfdom works. We got to pay rent.
The landlady. Yeah, you gotta pay rent to be in this species.
There's a
I hit you on the first.
You all thought it was Pangburn, but it's not.
It's the first of the month.
I'm going to need till the 5th. Is that
I hit you on
okay?
the first. Come on, let me hold some hands till the 10th. All right, I'll get me a
Yo, let me lay it down on the 2nd and see if I can get you back on the 15th. We cool?
Right. We cool. We're cool.
But
Dude,
no,
I
I
say
seriously
my
have a
dad grew up on that
serious
shit.
question. I have a serious question. How important do you think it'll be for psychedelics and the well-being of the human brain moving forward? And then what kind of effect do you think that'll have on us in society?
Well, I do think psilocybin, after all these years, after everything Tim Leary did and like where it's going now, it's going to start being used as a therapeutic probably in the next 10 years. They've already
The
done
more people that are
tests.
out of their mind, the better for me.
Dude, well, they've done tests with like psilocybin where like it's like affects people's like, and they're not tripping balls.
Claire,
Like, it's like
Claire wants
That's
to know.
microdosing.
amounts.
Claire's challenging Bruce here. We got to let her.
Why would you wait? Why do you want more people out of their mind? We already have
there's
people
more
who
for
think
the
they can have
taking.
sex with trees. I don't.
There's more for because there's more for the taking at that point. I mean, the people are out of their minds.
What's wrong with
they can do whatever they
dendrophilia?
want.
So this
Yeah,
guy,
I mean,
Listen,
I don't know if
listen,
you've
listen.
ever- I
But
don't know
like
if psychedelics do
psychedelics,
this,
not
but,
all
like,
psychedelics are going
if
to put you
everyone's on
that far in your
psychedelics,
mind. Listen.
if everyone's on
listen.
psychedelics and I'm the only truly sober person, I
Well-
think I've had it.
Well, how do you know? How do you
But
know?
you
How do you
are
know
also
that those
making-
hallucinations aren't real? I
Claire,
swear
this is all
that
hallucination.
my
You're
also-
tripping
last
balls
grade
right
was talking to
now.
me.
Also, you are making a jump there, Bruce, of saying like, "Hey, I might take like psychedelics at this like prescribed time," as opposed to saying like, "I'm on it all the time." And everybody's just like fucking tripping balls all the time.
Yeah,
Wait, who's
so-
tripping
so-
balls right now?
Me.
So hold on.
Hi.
Let me paint the.
Really?
Let me.
No,
Let's
I don't
not-
even
let's-
have balls to trip on. What do you mean?
Let's not dox ourselves. She lost them because she's so high. So
No,
let's
I
not.
heard someone
let's-
say. I thought it was Grim said that he was tripping balls right now.
No.
These are
I'm
all
always tripping. So
this
let's
is
just
my-
make that a standard first off.
I think Nivek's probably also
I
tripping
think
too.
Navik's got it going.
I was tripping earlier, but I
All
but
right,
I was
children,
done before I came
children.
on. So
Tripping on.
Hold on. Children of
Tripping on
Eden.
full foes.
We
I
were
don't know.
banished. We no. We've been banished from Eden. Are you kidding me?
They had the best DMT there. I'll tell you that much. Point is that
If we were in the Garden of Eden, we wouldn't have eaten the fruit on the tree. We would have a fucking food fight with the food on the tree.
Well, I'm pretty sure.
Just can't eat it.
Technically,
I'm pretty
we
sure.
can break them.
Pretty sure Eve grabbed
a couple
a
of us,
fucking cannabis bush walking out.
well, a couple of us might have been
Listen.
fucking the fruit on the tree too.
Listen.
So.
Yeah, a little
Listen,
warm.
It's like Adam and Eve.
honeydew.
It's like Adam and Eve are being
Creep.
forced to leave, and they're just packing up their bags full of like weed and like
Honey,
mushrooms and
why
shit.
are
Like,
you
well, we're
roasting-
definitely not leaving this shit here.
Honey, why are you roasting that honeydew melon over the fire? Don't just forget about it.
I'm just getting it to 98 degrees. That's all you got to worry about.
Just go to bed, okay?
I'm lost. I'm quite lost.
So
bring it back on track
So you
because
roast
you
it
crazy
to get it to
fucking
98 degrees, and then you fuck
It's like wrangling a bunch of monkeys. So
I gave up.
So moving forward, though, imagine this though. Imagine, because we do know that certain psychedelics inside of psilocybin, ayahuasca, these are being psilocybin. Thank you. Are being performed with tests, and we're going to have pill form soon. And it's going to help people mentally. But imagine us just focusing on mental health and well-being, not just in pill form, but even like the police are approaching situations. We're going to have a mental health officer with them. And imagine the world that we have where mental health becomes our number one concern. And it starts changing things and how we act. I think we can get pretty close to utopian if we focus on that. Not utopia, obviously, because people still need to do weird shit, but it pretty close. I think that's the best thing for humanity. And if we use things like psilocybin and other things to help shift the mind, right, to get people to think differently, I think that's the betterment that we can move forward with our brain. That's all I got to say. Make fun of me, serfdom rules.
I think that's probably the smartest thing you've ever said, Grim.
Yeah, that's sort of what I said. I
maintain
there are
my
like
clarity
therapeutics.
and sanity.
Pangburn, we talk a lot.
There are therapeutics that they're using psilocybin for, and they're like testing people like with depression, and they go in and they do like a series of taking microdoses and like talking to people, and like that they come out of it. It's really interesting.
Right, there are lots of people that come out of depression. There's lots of people that come out of depression with here's the thing. Here's my let me say my piece for a second. You guys can roast me. All right. Here's the thing. The people in the United States especially are largely looking for something to add to themselves to make themselves better, as opposed to removing bad habits or creating new habits that are quality. And so if we were to address behavioral health to solve mental health, then we might not have the problem. So let's say people get their acts together, find meaning, move, don't sit on the TV, and actually address their behavior. Then we can maybe address the small number of people with chemical problems in their brains, and we wouldn't have to resort to mass mental health reform. We have to resort to mass behavioral health reform, which is an actual tenable solution.
I do agree with that. I do agree with that, especially I don't know if you remember in the 90s when all of a sudden everybody was just getting diagnosed with ADD. It's really does everybody just really have ADD?
No, that was just teachers getting paid to give Ritalin to kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that, Bruce. When I talk about this, I do. When I think about it, I'm not saying everybody should be doing it, but I say, maybe instead of giving opioids and benzos and that kind of people, maybe there are other options that are not.
The options are options aren't benzos and other narcotics. The options are behavioral health.
No.
Where to go, man?
Can't you just do it in general?
That's what I agree.
That's in a good
agree
way.
with Bruce. Most people, it is behavioral, but I do think you have those outliers. And what I'm saying is those outliers. Is it better to do things with psilocybin and this kind of stuff that has no addictive aspect to it, as opposed to benzos, which we saw what happened with Jordan Peterson. He had to go into fucking a controlled coma and shit.
Yeah, it's a mess.
He still didn't get over it. To me, I just think that's way worse. Yeah,
I just don't think the idea of treating the symptom is the way to go. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I
agree
with
your
you
drugs
on that.
though. I understand. I understand the libertarian argument, dude. If everyone wants to get high and have guns and tanks, dude. I'm down. Okay.
No.
Nah, man. We take the Republican attack. We talk about lobotomies, beating them with the bigger stick, and hitting them with Jesus. That's how you fix stupid.
That's another option there.
Yeah, why not hit everyone with Jesus?
I don't know. Last I checked,
I don't want to go.
Behavioral health.
We don't want to go down the religious road.
I mean, but be understanding about how we've been treating mental health for the past couple hundred years. It has been horrific, probably for most of humanity, honestly. And it's been horrific because we don't understand it. Well, now that we have the neurosciences, now that we can actually see the results of what these things are doing and the outcomes, I just think it's, if we focus on like Bruce says, which is behavioral health, and we focus on realigning people. And I'm not talking internment camps, and we're not going to do, like what the Chinese are doing to the Uyghurs or some shit, but I'm talking about providing assistance where it's like, yeah, okay, well, being poor is a mentality. Okay, well, your anger issue is a mentality. Okay, well, you being a victim and you having to be an SJW about it is a mentality. Like, these are all mentalities. It has nothing to do with an oppressive system and systematic this and the fucking man's got you down or all this other shit. It's like, dude, that's all mentality. You live in the freest nation with the best equal opportunity. No one's educating you on how to do it. That's the fucking problem.
Yeah, but you're not going to tell people like, we're going to solve all your problems with this small microdose pill. You just got to take it every day. This small amount, do that every day.
No. It's coming.
That's
what's coming.
You got to do that with therapy, though.
No,
that's the scary thing that's coming.
It's a combination between both of psychology and medicinal.
No,
but Bruce is right. That's what's coming.
That's. No, I don't think that is coming.
I don't see that as a good thing, man.
If you give people psilocybin with therapy, then it can do things like reduce, depression and anxiety and PTSD.
It's been statistically.
Just giving people doses of shrooms without the frickin' therapy at the same time, and the.
It's not the same. Yeah,
it's not. Yeah, well, it doesn't. It gives you. It might give you. What they think is that psilocybin actually enables your brain to basically reprogram itself, right? It gives you neuroplasticity.
I mean,
but if you just give people psilocybin, it's just going to reprogram itself randomly to whatever's going on in that person's life at the time. So if you don't couple that with therapy,
really,
it's not going to help anyone.
That's why people have bad trips.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear about
this. Go into that shit, and then all of a sudden, like, oh my god, everything that I've been fucking worrying about, it's just like coming to the forefront. And
so microdosing is actually extremely healthy. Right, so it's not having to trip your fucking balls off.
So is taking a walk and an exercise.
Says people who live in San Francisco, a city filled with shit on the streets.
Okay, well, anyway, so provenly, scientifically, microdosing psilocybin.
I do want to say, have you been to like Wyoming? There's like a shitload of. There's a ton of shit on the streets in Wyoming. It just happens to be horse shit.
Riding a Sibian. Good lord.
Horse shit.
People are so depraved.
People shit.
On one or something.
Bruce knows what that is. You're depraved.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm not an idiot.
Well, I'm just saying is that, imagine taking swaths of people and having a government-ran facility in your city, which works with medical health professionals, and you do a 2-day.
Why does it have to be government-ran? Why is that?
Because listen to me. Because basically it works like this. So
I'm just saying you already lost me when you said imagine a city that has a government-ran facility.
All right. So imagine the government just starts rounding up swaths of Americans, right? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's people that. First off, Dr. Doolittle, you get a number tattooed on you, and then
the yellow not going on.
Yeah, I think he's getting that feudal serfdom, to be honest.
I know, right? So what I'm trying to say is that. All right.
Yeah, we're in
all right. Here's a glass for you. Here's a glass for you. Here's a glass of you. Nice warm glass. Shut the fuck up. Point is that you have. The point is that you have people that don't fit in society, that fall through the cracks. These people are in prison. These people are in mental wards, right? We're talking about like PTSD, veterans halls, things like this. Services provided to those people. 2-day ayahuasca trip with a medical health professional to help them work through their problems. And they can come out. Basically, and it's been provable that it's been anywhere from 70 to 80% success rate. And yeah, they do work with a thing called a shaman. Yes, a medical professional is called a shaman nowadays. And
that's a fucking giant long ayahuasca trip.
2 days? That's the average day time for an ayahuasca trip. It's 2 days.
No, it's like 8 hours.
You know what I think?
Yes, but the effect and what you need to work through.
Hold on. Let Bruce,
you don't just walk out of there after 8 hours.
Let Bruce finish.
On the topic of
so shaman guided
and shamans.
Okay, yeah.
On the topic of shamans and ayahuasca, right? If that is the cure-all or really great for folks, why aren't there so many rich CEO Native Americans? What happened to the enlightened shamans that should have gotten them?
Rich CEO. Come on, man. Do you know Native Americans? Because I actually work with Native American groups. They don't want any part of that.
Yeah, dude,
Native Americans
you work with everybody.
They should be floating above all of us in their enlightened state. They shouldn't have to become alcoholics in the reservations or killed by most of man.
No, ayahuasca. No, Bruce.
Societies.
Calm down, Bruce. Calm down,
Bruce.
Get this man some ayahuasca. Someone get him some ayahuasca. Bruce, I'll bring some.
They had it all.
So Bruce, let me bring you back to reality.
Look at the icon next to my name. I can tell you that.
So hold on. Well, here's the thing,
for
Bruce.
sure that there's no amount of ayahuasca that can stop you from being an alcoholic. I can tell you,
there's no amount of
100% sure.
It does. It's not a panacea.
No.
These people are.
No, it does not. Ayahuasca will not help you.
All right.
It's funny.
It will not help you stop being an alcoholic.
It's a good bit, though.
Will not help you stop being an alcoholic.
I don't know, man.
It'll just help you help you realize that you're an alcoholic.
Let's let Del 2 get in here.
I know, like, hypnosis can help you stop becoming an alcoholic, and I think, like, again, you would need therapy or to be guided or just to get there on your own, which a lot of people do. But I think you could use those sorts of things to get there. But being a rather frequent user of psychedelics.
Go ahead.
I don't really think that.
Hold on. Let Dal finish.
Well, I don't think a microdose would do much. That said, I also don't think it's a good idea to prescribe it willy-nilly. Of course, we're doing studies, so that's not what we're going to be doing. And I think hopefully people aren't going to start doing it like Adderall style, where they just hand it out to every college kid.
You know they are.
Every elementary school kid that
every fucking kid that asks a question, give him some fucking ayahuasca. Blow it in
ayahuasca
his face.
for
you want to know the fucking
everybody.
answer? Here, take this.
Okay, so let me be serious about what I mean, Bruce. Let me be serious about what I mean. What I mean is that ayahuasca can be used in certain things like severe PTSD and drug abuse, which is the main issues, right? There's a lot of other stuff which people need to try, obviously. And when it comes down to the Native Americans and why they're not flying high above all of us, well, first off, I work with 2 major Native American groups that deal with these drugs, and it is a huge business for them, massive business for them. But it's more of a sacramental thing. It's not a profit thing. It's not to be shared with them. They do make money within their own communities, and they sell what they want to the white man, not everything to the white man. They just have a different way of living life. So if for alcoholism,
wait a second. What? Hold on. There are also certain native communities that are extremely fucking affluent, you know.
This is not the ones that probably deal with the major amounts of ayahuasca because of the legalities behind it. Like, you got to understand, you could be a Native American community, but it doesn't mean that you just get to start messing around with whatever drug you want.
This is great. So they have ayahuasca. It helps people get over depression and should help people's cultural problems. Yet the folks that are selling the ayahuasca will only sell it to the white man in sparing doses because they're so enlightened. They're so enlightened and they're so happy-go-lucky with their holding hands across the world. They have to limit their use of contact with the white man based on the color of his skin.
No, that's not what I mean.
That is
We should
exactly.
all be like them and not discriminate. But wait a second, let's not give it to everyone because they're white.
Finally, Bruce has adopted scientism.
That's just their ayahuasca. You know they don't have like a patent on ayahuasca, right?
Well,
We have our own.
ayahuasca.
They're not giving it-
hold on. Ayahuasca is
They're
from
enlightened
South,
individuals that
South
keep it
America.
themselves.
Well, hold
People
on.
have to
not
take everybody's perspectives.
But here's the thing,
ayahuasca is
Yeah,
from
we're not
South
talking about
America
pipe
that
tobacco
comes
here.
from fucking specifically.
I'm using the scientific method here.
So I mean, like Bruce, you might say like what is it? North America, fucking peyote. Like people get peyote buttons. Like I mean, that's like that's what you'll see in
The cactus is endangered.
Ayahuasca
that
is like
statement.
That's like way south.
Think about the idea of like enlightened shamans that are like, wait a second, we got to keep this away from these people that look this way. Like we're enlightened individuals. We're very in touch with human beings. But white men, please get the hell out.
We'll give the white tourists. We'll give the white tourists the cancer cost.
I do know, like I actually have been to a sweat lodge or whatever like that experience, and it was all like literally Native Americans, and we did fucking peyote buttons, and you fucking sit in a goddamn teepee that's 115 degrees and shit. It is all it's all Native Americans, and
your asshole hurt afterwards.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, there's nothing wrong. There's no wrong anywhere. You have to take in all perspectives. You have to address the problem of what's the person being miserable, and the therapy of psychology psychology and medicine. You know,
I'm trying to find the enlightened individuals to find the enlightened individuals that are on ayahuasca trips with shamans that are so well adapted and just grounded individuals who have.
It's not like that, Bruce. It's not like that.
They're not.
It's not. Look. If you're normal and you're taking ayahuasca, that's probably not the best thing for you. But if you have major issues like PTSD and drug addiction, which are the two biggest, that's what counts. And those people have to start getting their life back on track. So usually they leave an ayahuasca trial pretty fucked up. And also the fact that ayahuasca trials can only be done in Kansas for the supervision and certain places in the South under sacramental sanctity. It's completely legal to do this anywhere else on basically non-Native American land.
Bruce, are you anti-drug person?
Elon Musk has like quite a bit of history of like known taking psychedelics, right? I mean, that's
personally, I don't do drugs.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. You're
You don't drink coffee, smoke cigarettes, or smoke tobacco?
I'm anti.
I don't like to do it, but
I'm anti-drugs too, by the way.
What about coffee?
I'm anti-drugs too, by the way. But this what they're saying kind of makes sense. They're changing my mind. I'm that type of person.
I'm just trying to find. I'm just looking for the enlightenment.
What about coffee and tobacco?
Change the world.
What about coffee and tobacco, Bruce?
See, but I don't
not psychedelics.
Yeah, well, I don't think any of that has anything to do with anything. You know, like. However somebody feels like there might be somebody who jumps out of an airplane who you get these unnatural responses of adrenaline and all of a sudden you feel this certain way. So people can take all sorts of actions that might put you in a different state of experience.
You know what will put you in a different state? It puts you in a different state is sitting in a teepee at 115 degrees for 2 days. That puts you in a different state. Okay? It actually literally puts you in a different state because you're in the Southwest in a different state.
Dude,
but actually, you're in a different state. It's called dehydrated.
I'll tell you what. Go fart in a balloon.
Dude touching your junk.
Go fart in a balloon and put it over your nose.
Too. Like when I was in basic training, the amount of sleep deprivation that I had. There was one day where I was sitting in a fucking like conversation and I looked up and it was like a checkerboard roof and I saw like lobsters and shit like coming out of it. Like that's how sleep deprived I was. Like you just like start fucking hallucinating.
I like Bruce's take on it of like, I ain't doing no ayahuasca trial. Some guys gonna be touching my junk in a teepee. Get me the fuck.
That's what Bruce.
I never said anything about touching junk. I didn't say any junk touching.
No, you basically sit under a weighted blanket while people chant some random shit.
If Bruce really needs it, we'll get him the iron underwear and lock him down.
Bruce, you have
chastity
smoked.
belt.
You have smoked
Listen,
pot before, right?
Listen, it's not. It's a lot when I was younger.
I don't need hot ass in the teepee.
Well, here, let me be honest. The iron underwear is not for me. It's for them. Okay, because like there's a serious inadequacy that would occur if I were naked and with the natives, because they're not well endowed, those individuals. It's a real. It's a pride thing.
Bruce is like, I'm Bruce is like,
what are you, Cortez, hopping up on the beach right now?
Bruce is just walking around with a fucking log in his front of his pants.
No, that's the other thing. So Cortez shows up with golden boats, and these people are supposedly advanced civilization with ayahuasca, and they get run roughshod through like little children and start worshiping gold. Like, please, Negro, please. Okay.
They took out most of his crew with arrows and shit to their muskets. It basically was a slaughterhouse on Cortez.
Well, this is Spanish, Negro.
Well, in military numbers are fucking primary. I mean, that's more numbers.
We ain't
Bruce,
speaking
ayahuasca.
Spanish.
Taking ayahuasca does not mean that you rule over the rest of humanity. That's not what ayahuasca does.
They're definitely not allowed. They're definitely not enlightened.
It doesn't help you with science much, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like,
where's the boats?
It also doesn't help you get motivated to do more work.
Well, the Aztecs
how does Cortez land on the shore, and the natives never built a boat? What is going on? Same time.
Well, they did build boats.
They don't have water and water, sails. They don't have any of that. They don't have none of that. They have no cloth. They have no wood. They have no water. Oh, wait, they have all of that. They're too busy getting high and sacrificing virgins.
No, I think this is. I think this is sort of. No, I don't think that's fair at all. This is sort of a difference in environment, because you can look at like Pacific Islanders at that exact same time. They were taking long boat trips, and they were, so it really comes down to the specific environment that people were living in. Did they have any true reason to have boats? I don't think they did. They're more living on the sustenance
on the vines,
from the forest.
Yeah. They were living on the vines and the frickin'
the
leaves
that
mixed to make.
I have been to Spain. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty rich and fertile. There's really no need to get on a boat and go do anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I think back in that time, like that's when ideology definitely trumped.
Well, then what is ideology comes out of something?
What does? But people who are people who are this people who exist an existence of just surviving and finding food, like the way like the people in South America were for the most part. They had cities, but it wasn't nearly to the same extent that was what was going on in Europe. And in Europe at that time, all of a sudden people started like being like, okay, well, what's out there? And like that's where you had like the age of explorers, and you had like this ideal built up in Europe about somebody who just goes out on the high seas and finds what's new, So if they didn't have that same thing in South American cultures at that time, that has nothing to do necessarily with how worthy they are or like how adapted they are, more along the lines of like what state of progression they are.
Also, like the rainforest, at least, like for South Americans, where ayahuasca is, that is literally the hardest place ever to grow food. And they invented something that modern humans are like just getting around to, where they found a way to completely reinvigorate the soil full of nutrients, like every season using some method.
Yeah,
And
so they didn't have to furlough. Is that basically what you're talking
Black
about?
Earth. It's a black Earth.
Yeah.
I'm mostly just kidding, but it's somewhat fascinating to me. But I'm just saying, like, maybe the answers to our problems aren't in the ayahuasca tents with the shamans. That's all I'm saying.
No, I totally agree with
Listen,
you.
people will want to
But it's more.
We'll do it
more along the lines of body of Christ and then the blood of Christ, and making sure we eat that every Sunday.
Wait a second. That's the Catholics, and they're wrong. But people want to throw Christianity under the bus, but we're like not stuck in the middle of the forest doing nothing, and we've been responsible for large amounts of success with our ideology. Where on the other side, the ideology had laid waste to those people, and they killed each other in mass on virgin islands and conquered by a nation of immigrants from 600,000 miles away. So, I'm just saying there's a possible ideological value hierarchy here, and there might be something to, the West.
There is strong evidence to point towards the fact that our species was working with mushrooms in the Fertile Crescent in Africa to advance our intelligence.
Again. Well, not to mention Europe was tripping on ergot for the past 1,000 years before they got.
Well, how come we're not suggesting that? Who's not suggesting ergon? We're suggesting ayahuasca, maybe psilocybin, and that could be an argument for Moses. But maybe that's the word. Maybe that's the word. I don't know.
Moses was ayahuasca.
I don't think any of that really matters. It's like how important was gunpowder to the West? Drastically important. Where did gunpowder come from? China.
Why didn't anyone else create gunpowder?
The Chinese created gunpowder.
Well, why did they? I mean, they're actually relatively intelligent people.
Well, just a random event.
It just happened, random. And that's the thing. It just happened, and that to me, the way I see the world is like you just see these things that happen, and we can look at right now and be like, oh, okay, this certain group they're more ahead than these other people over here. I don't think it means anything to the fundamental value of their moral system or anything like that. I just think that's the way it is. And in another 500, 1,000, 10,000 years, that's going to change, guaranteed.
Dude, Greek
religion values was about people who were wealthy and the elites and nobles and monarchs were true blood, superior. Oh boy, you know where I'm gonna go, right?
Love Christ.
We know where you're going.
Yeah, it's always about power structure with you.
Well, you guys went there, man.
Yeah, we went there, guys.
What I said was not power structure. That was.
What were you saying there, Dal? And then
Christian, all the 12 apostles who were all about wealth and hierarchy were hung, slaughtered, and murdered heinously because they were all about wealth power. Excuse me. The savior of the world was killed on a cross by Romans, sold by the Jews. But it's about wealth and power and hierarchy. Like
anointed by God, the king and the queen anointed by God.
That's man. That's you can point to any any civilization and say that. All of them.
Royal bloodline is supremacy through
That's not religion. That's man.
That is religion.
Okay, that's man. That's man.
They meant that they have more inherent values, superior values.
Who does?
Kings and queens.
Who puts
through
that
blood.
In place? They
through
put
blood.
That in place.
Religion
themselves. No. That's such a distilled version of the man's problem.
Are you religious?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nivek, you should maybe just listen to Bruce for a little bit and see where he's coming from, because where you're trying to come from, that's gonna go nowhere.
Anyway, it's fine. I was mostly making a lot of jokes. You can go forward.
Yeah, pretty good. But Greek fire, though, dude. Greece had flamethrowers for a while, and then what happened to them? They disappeared.
Yep.
They forgot how to.
You're talking about Archimedes too. Archimedes built not only Greek fire, but he built the mirror, right?
Well, the Greeks had philosophers. We're not talking about Aztec philosophers, are we?
Well, their language is harder to read.
What?
Yeah, and it's just.
Have you seen Greek?
Well, not only harder to read, but here's also the fundamental thing too. Is Greeks built libraries, and it has nothing to do with they were specifically special.
By the way,
did they build libraries?
With it.
Religion burnt itself out. That created liberal humanism of the Renaissance.
I think they built libraries because of the fact that civilization had grown there for a long fucking time. So
did the Chinese.
That's basically that's basically the cradle of civilization. Even if you look back, like as far as we can through evolution, people settled there first, and then they started moving out to China, got all the way down to like Australia, went over the Bering
Australia
Strait,
was a
came
penal
into
colony.
America.
Mostly inhabited by natives before that, but of course.
But those natives originally came from Africa. So, like, I mean, that's, we've got to look back that far and like,
I don't know if that's
where was
didn't come from
where,
some of them, yes, some of them, no. I mean, and that's a different discussion.
No, Aboriginals, 100% African DNA, 100%. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Okay, I always heard they're native.
Yeah,
to the
because
land.
Africans were selling out the slaves to other people way before the slave trade in East India.
No, more along the lines of just like Homo sapiens come out of Africa about, a million years ago, and
that's my view. That's my view too. With the sellout Africans, the elites aligned with each other, and they sold out their own.
No, well, that's
what
Africa.
slavery.
Africa's huge.
Elites?
Hold on.
He's just talking about the origins of humanity. What does elites have to do?
That's nothing to do with my point. Like what I'm saying.
No, he's talking about.
No.
People have screwed their own.
Just let me finish. The point that I'm making is like, if you had any group of people who all of a sudden settled here and they started building a society while other groups of those same people just continue to be like hunters and gatherers and just spreading across, and all over time everybody made their own settlements, and that's how it went. But the fundamental settlement that people stayed there, they're going to be more advanced than everybody else within the confines of what we understand as a society, because they've been dealing with it. I mean, it's not, this isn't rocket science. It's just basic reasoning. And over time, you would see that those people would deal with certain issues that come up with other groups haven't come to yet. And that's why, that's why society started pretty much in Mesopotamia, moved to like Greece and to Rome. That's probably where like the majority of people moved to. This is the more fertile land, as opposed to moving down in Africa, which was more desertified. I mean, so people, that's where people migrated to, because that's where there was resources, and that's where things developed.
You can have genetic similarities with another person, regardless of
special to it.
You could have. Probably you could potentially have more genetic similarities to somebody else of another region of a different race than somebody of the same area.
Because of potentially.
Because you can be in a cold area where you can be tall, where in a hot area where based on the environment you can be tall, and genetically you just come out tall. But then there's no tall
because
race
of mosquitoes.
Though.
Well, hold on, Nivek. I do want to say you can just make a point without having to give like analogies behind it. We all understand the point when you first make it.
Okay, well, you can get an organ from someone else that were more genetic compatibilities of blood, immunity, of what do you call it, flesh similarities, and regardless of where they're from.
Yep.
But that they're not classified as a group along those genetic similarities.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a tall race, a old blood type race, or a fat race.
There's all kinds of unity among diversity.
But in the past, people were diverse because of they within the same group of different viewpoints. The people in the past, they looked at each other as different races of the same race.
Still are. Like, do you not think people with like specific groups
a lot of people
have different opinions? Come on now.
No, I'm just saying some people of the same race, we're seen as the same race now. They saw each other as different races in the past.
Like whites, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going.
I mean, like blood. People who see themselves as superior through blood.
they see themselves as different, which was a myth, why they screwed each other, with incest, because they thought that they were that's a good thing, because they're elite. So you screw your sister and you're getting a superior.
Yeah, have you ever seen any of the royal family in England? Yeah, they're all a bunch of like inbred, really weird looking people.
Their head,
but that's not
the
good.
royals. The
head
royals
shape,
in
except for
England.
the head shape is not right.
William,
Can I
William
say
and Harry,
one thing
William
about that?
and Harry, since their mom was Diana and she wasn't like part of the inbred group,
Right.
they look normal compared to like everybody else.
Yeah, look at the others. Their skull is not correct.
Dude,
one thing
it's
you need
not right.
you need diversity within your genome. You can't have the same genes coming together, because you put yourself more prone to illnesses and getting sick. You're devolving yourself genetically is what you're doing.
Some of the most beautiful people
You're
are
actually
mixed race
reverting
babies.
back.
Genetic variation is even going back to just Darwin. Genetic variation is fucking fundamental. Like you need variation. Kentucky jelly. Are you talking about Kentucky jelly?
Oh fuck! Here we go. Scott's gonna go.
Dude, Kentucky
No, I mean, even
jelly.
going back to Kentucky, genetic diversity is very important.
The monarchs didn't believe that. They believed like the same gene is of supremacy is even more supremacy.
Like,
and they're actually.
You think that's
they're actually genetically inferior to commoners. Monarchs are genetically inferior to commoners.
That's unique to monarchs. Do you know that that's been happening in tribalism since the dawn of time, sir?
Yeah.
Now you Nivik.
Oh, everybody's been doing it. Oh.
Nivik, your turn.
Yes, even the Jews did this. It was one of their biggest problems in the early days. They still do this in Orthodox Jewish communities.
It is still a problem.
Only the rabbis are allowed to be dads.
It says not. It's this. If you start looking at everything through the idea of monarchs and oppression, you will never get the full picture. Exactly. You've really got to get yourself out of that idea that things came about because certain groups of people are stronger than others only because of their oppression narrative that they're forming in their brain. That's not the case. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just talking about. I was talking about DNA. Is what I was talking about. You
were talking about DNA. You were talking about monarchs.
What was that, Del?
Yeah, dude.
I was talking.
The concept of DNA didn't exist.
I was talking about that people being different through DNA, or similar, regardless of where. I'm not categorizing anything. I'm pointing out how similar people can be, and people who didn't think that way, they inbred, they had incest with each other.
Nivik, is that something like 30,000 years ago, apparently, people, the geneticists have tracked back all the human DNA lines, and apparently something like 30,000 years ago there was some kind of cataclysm where all of humanity was down to something like 100 or 1,000 individuals.
It's 10. I think it's like 10,000, right?
I don't know. I heard like in the range of 100 to 1,000 is how many humans survived the cataclysm that happened 30,000 years ago. But it might be 10,000. I'm sure that the order of magnitude accuracy is not that high. Maybe it was 100,000,
but humans naturally evolve over time.
There was a pretty small population that was a funnel that all previous humans basically passed through. Those were the only ones that survived that cataclysm. So really, let's just say there's only 100 ancestors of all of humanity.
Yeah, and
right. So we
there's
should
a natural
really have
evolution, but we evolve over time, though.
99% overlap.
But we naturally evolve and genetically change over time.
Yeah. So even in more in Basque people of like they're the
Basques.
Yeah, the Basque from the region in between like France and Spain, and I guess the theory is they were on
Northern Nevada.
Yeah, Northern. I had a teacher actually.
Wait a second. We're letting Nivik get away with the fact that he said he's not trying to categorize things. That's all that comes out is the categorization of hierarchies that have oppressed the minority or oppressed the poor. Like the category is constant.
Yeah.
I said that people were are more similar than you think. In a person from one area,
yes, that's
can have
true.
similarities to another person of another area genetically.
And like I said, because we only have 100
if you're in
ancestors.
one area and it's demanded that you're tall in a hot area, and in another area you're cold, and it demands that you're tall in that area based on the environment.
Yeah.
That you can have a tall gene, but nobody equates each other along the lines of tall gene of me not acknowledging race. Why I don't which was my argument against thinking that way. And I was saying that it's a delusion how monarchs think that way of being superior when they were inbreeding and thinking that they were being superior, but in reality they were inferior to a commoner by genetically devolving themselves by having incest with each other, because you dwindle down your genome when you have incest with because they cancel each other out. You're losing diversity, and you need diversity in order to adapt a long time. So that's why the lineage of monarchism over time of inbreeding. But then again, somebody said everybody inbreeds, which is a good counter to that. That's that's not how I'm thinking. I don't think that way.
Nivik, you are right about those things you were saying. I think what it was is you had brought up the I think it was you applied the monarchy to something that was quite detailed, and that's what Bruce.
My argument was that it was delusional of people thinking that it was supremacy when in screwing each other, when in reality it wasn't. They're no different. They're no better than.
So Nivik, you're like they were fucking and having kids with their sisters, and they were like, "Oh, we're keeping our blood so pure, and this is a good thing."
Because they go off of bloodline supremacy, and thinking that they wouldn't dare touch a commoner. That's crazy. We're superior to them. In reality, they were actually inferior genetically because they're devolving themselves genetically.
It's not. I wouldn't look at it as
because you need diversity in your genome.
Nivik, I wouldn't look at it as inferior genetically, right? That's more of a moral claim.
It's not the that's what I was going to say. The claim that to address that one point, the claim there is that somehow they're going after their bloodline for the sake of genetic superiority. That's not the case. That's not been the case for a long time. Their bloodline is to secure the values that they have set forth in their family, that they would continue their lineage in the same way that you would have your family do something that would honor each other. The same idea. And now it's obviously wrong, but it's not that they're trying to create these mass humans of great prowess because of their breeding inter-family breeding. They're trying to create their bloodline that sustains. Not about genetics. It's not about that at all.
I believe it is. It's through they think it's inheritance.
Well, I mean, they didn't have a theory. They didn't have a theory of genetics. So saying that it's about genetics is completely fucking bullshit.
Yes, because people who were monarchs were seen as anointed by God, and a lot of that was about supremacy.
Nivik,
being born into.
You got to try to help. Nivik, you got to listen to the critique, because it. So just so you're not talking past, the point that was just made before you started talking again was that, they didn't know what genetics were, so they weren't thinking about genetics and passing on genetics. They had an idea, the blood right of kings idea, the king,
the firstborn son is going to be the king,
right? And so there was a lot of mythology there connected to blood, but it wasn't this thing of like.
So you didn't think of the thing of supremacy of commoner.
I'm just saying that. They might have thought their blood to be supreme. I'm sure they did.
But it wasn't.
Okay, Nivik, but it wasn't about genetics. That was the point.
Well, they didn't know genetics, but they just.
It's not about blood. it's not about blood being superior just for blood's sake. It's also not that they are founded by God specifically in all of these monarchs. They are a group of people that have maintained their lineage.
Right,
but for the sake
they
of
believe
right,
they believe their supremacy is inherent through their blood.
Well,
no, just
and it's backed by
just the
religion.
formula that they used for passing down the authority. Okay, so like in modern times, we believe that individuals are sovereign, and in the previous times that these people lived in, they thought that the first descendant of the king is sovereign. Right, and males came before females, so they had this map of who's going to be the next king that's sovereign, and it depends on your relationship to the previous king. So keeping yourself close to the first descendant of the king gives you power over land and authority and rule making and so forth, and maybe you're going to be the next king. And if enough people die, then you're going to be the next king. So it's not.
There's more to it.
They weren't thinking about like, oh, I want, my great granddad was God, and I want to be more like my great granddad, so I'm going to screw my cousin. I mean, that's not how.
There's a lot of stuff
they
there.
thought.
There's a lot of stuff there because there's also values and culture that are required for them to mate. So like this is why kingdoms would join at the head, because their values were the same. You see, they're trying to ensure that what they think to be true. Now, this is wrong, of course, but they're trying to ensure that what they believe continues, and so that's going to continue within the system of people that are in the same echelon or their same values.
But their values is naturally through blood by God, in anointment by God.
And property passed down through marriage.
No,
too.
it's
so
not about passing down, man. It's not about passing down. It's just about naturally entitled to that through God.